I now convene the August 2024 meeting of the Executive Committee. Will the recording secretary please call the roll? Here. Here.
Brown.
Here.
Present.
Here.
I think she hears. She's here on the screen. Johanna, can you hear us?
While you were calling roll, it was very difficult to hear.
Okay.
Now I hear you perfectly now, but I couldn't hear you.
Well, we hear you, but we don't hear the commissioners.
He has a soft tone.
David Simmons.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have one action item before us today. Agenda item 2A is the appointment of the Educator Preparation Student Liaison. The item is being presented by Haju Rio. Ms. Rio, please begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Commission's policy manual allows the Executive Committee to appoint an educator preparation student to serve as a liaison to the Commission. An announcement for applications for the 2024 and the 2025 term was sent by email to the deans and directors of Commission programs over several weeks, and the information was also posted on the Commission's website. The final filing date to submit applications was July 31st, 2024. Staff worked with Commissioners Brown, Cardenas, and Colby to screen applications and interview candidates. The panel interviewed the 2 applicants via Zoom, and the essay of interest for each finalist is included in the agenda item. If there are no questions for staff, I would like to let the panel provide additional information on the interviews and to give their recommendation to the Executive Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to invite members of the interview panel to provide their thoughts on the interviews and recommendations of the student liaison position before we open for public comment.
Thank you. So as Haju just mentioned, we had the pleasure of interviewing 2 extremely highly qualified, distinguished candidates. It was a tough decision, I believe, on our parts to identify one of them to serve. They brought very different strengths. RJ, we are going to miss you. We were thinking about all the contributions that you made as well. And we had a candidate who is in an intern program currently, in teacher preparation program. We had another candidate who is a graduate student in school counseling. Amber almost was her name, and she is the one that the committee would like to put forward. She brings a very deep understanding of credentialing issues, was a strong advocate for students across different credentialing programs, has served in student government positions and wanted to effectively represent candidates from different credentialing programs too, and also brought a unique lens because we haven't had a student representative who has been from the school counseling program prior. So the committee would like to recommend Amber Olmos to be our student representative. I wonder if either of you like to add in?
Giving me the look, but I want to go ahead and turn it over to Commissioner Brown.
Thank you so much. Yes, I agree with everything that Commissioner Palgray has already shared. We were really impressed with Amber's ability to really articulate some of the issues that are challenges for many of our candidates going through programs. She also talked about the importance of balance when you're going through a preparation program, about specifically about the challenge of maintaining balance. Well, you have a preparation program, you have your day job, and you have your family life. And we thought that was really important because many times we hear from candidates about how that challenge is real, and that sometimes that's hard to really balance all of those facets. We found her to be very well spoken about the issues and very committed to putting in the time to understand all facets of different credential types. And we thought that since we, to our knowledge, have not had someone from this particular preparation program, the pupil personnel services, child welfare attendance, and school counseling, that would be a great thing and would build our collective capacity to understand all the preparation programs that we.
And I'll just add a little bit just from both of the candidates, how they both talked about just this passion for pursuing a career in education. They were both very self-motivated and they looked into the commission to see what this positioning was about. And they talked about just being a positive role model in education. And they talked about this whole child and to have positive support within the environments of our educational system, but also at home, how that was really important. And both of them talked about this just assets approach where they were completely student-centered. I mean, the entire interview process was them talking about how they were about students. And then they both asked, what do we look for in student liaisons? And the number one thing we kept saying is their voice. We want our candidates' voice. We want our students' voice. We need to know what's happening in the field so we can really impact that policy. And so I would just want to say thank you to RJ. Thank you to all the student liaisons who've ever served on CTC. We're looking forward to having this student candidate because we really need your voice here at this table. So thank you.
Well, thank you to the committee for your work and for your very thoughtful presentation. We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card to the recording secretary or clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, pressing *9 if participating by phone. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? Public comment period for this item is now closed. All commissioners are welcome to participate, but only an executive committee member can make a motion and vote on this item. On this note, do commissioners have any questions or comments? Do you have a motion to appoint Alma? I'm looking for her last name.
Amber Olmos.
Amber Olmos to the Educator Preparation Student Liaison position. And do I have a second? Right, thank you. Any discussion? Recording secretary, please call for the vote.
Brunel Shire. Bonnie Klatt.
Aye.
Danette Brown.
Aye.
Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Juan Cruz. Johanna Hartwig.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Aisha. Congratulations to our new student liaison, Amber Olmos. Let me take also a moment to thank our current student liaison, RJ Wicks, for his service to the commission. We're going to miss your voice and your passion at this table. We wish you just the best, and we hope you'll stay in touch with us. We have a past practice of not letting you go once you've served as a student liaison. And we're very interested to see where you end up, and we do hope you'll stay in touch. Do you want to say a brief comment, RJ?
Sure, I can. I have all my stuff written up for my liaison report. I can wait till then, or I can get it now, whichever.
Whatever you want.
Well, since the floor is here, I guess I'll take it now.
Okay.
You guys don't mind. All right, thank you. I just want to say good morning to all the commissioners. It's great to be with you all virtually today. I'm really sad I cannot be there in person, but I'll explain why I'm joining you all virtually later. But today is my last liaison report. And as I conclude my term as a student liaison for the CTC, I just reflect over the transformative experiences and valuable insights I gained during my time on the commission. Serving as a student liaison allowed me to actively engage with the critical issues affecting educator preparation in California. In my application, I wrote about my AAA service commitment, which included availability, adaptability, and advocacy. Throughout this journey, I aim to uphold these principles, and these principles guided me with my interactions with students and commissioners ensuring that the voices of aspiring educators were heard and that diverse perspectives were considered in shaping policies that impact teacher credentialing. Serving as a student liaison has profoundly inspired, put a sense of inspiration in me, particularly as I witnessed the passing of critical measures aimed at making the journey for becoming a teacher more accessible and equitable. The introduction of the PK3 Early Childhood Education Specialist Instruction Credential, I think I said that all right, and the well-needed changes of the entry requirements into credential programs through the Senate Bill 153 reflect the Commission's commitment to removing barriers and supporting a diverse, well-prepared teaching workforce. These initiatives directly align with my aspirations to address the teacher shortage, enhance diversity in the profession, and support future educators, as I outlined in my application essays. It has been an honor to contribute to these conversations, advocating for policies that ensure that all aspiring teachers, regardless of their backgrounds, have opportunities to succeed. The work we've accomplished reinforces my belief in the power of inclusive, equitable education, and I am deeply proud to have played a role in the pivotal changes. Now, I'm excited to announce that I'm meeting with you all virtually because I'm currently in New York City. Next week, I will begin my master's in education policy at Teachers College, Columbia University. Thank you. Today is actually my program's orientation, so I will have to slip out a bit early to attend some of the required sessions. But as I prepare to embark on my next chapter at Teachers College, I am filled with a sense of purpose and urgency. My experiences as student liaison has deepened my commitment to advocating for policies that advance equity and excellence in education. I'm also beginning my role as an administrative fellow on campus, where I will continue to develop my skills in education administration. Before I conclude, I want to emphasize the importance of the continuity in the role of the student liaison to ensure that the future liaisons can effectively pass along information and resources to student teachers across California. I strongly encourage the Commission to continue working on a separate website or portal dedicated to this purpose. I cannot emphasize this enough. I know I've talked about this throughout the entire time on the board, but such a platform would not only facilitate communication, but also empower future liaisons to advocate for the needs of their peers more effectively. I am more than willing to assist with any projects related to the development of this portal and to support the incoming student liaison any way possible. I see that they go to Cal State Dominguez. I'm from Carson, so I'm really happy to see my hometown represented on the commission again. The work we do together has the potential to create long-lasting change in the field of education, and I am excited to see how our collective efforts will shape in the future of teaching in California. Lastly, I initiated the creation of the CTC Student Liaison Manual. I created it, and I'll probably send it over to Haiju or someone to pass it along. But I designed this to serve as a comprehensive guide for future liaisons stepping into the role. My intention is for this to be a living document, continually updated by each liaison with valuable insights and practical advice to ensure that those who follow are feel well prepared and supported. This manual, along with the proposed student liaison portal on the CTC website, will be essential tools for fostering communication and continuity within the commission, hoping to make the transition to the role smoother and more effective for future liaisons. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Thank you so much for letting me serve in this role. I look forward to staying connected and continue to contribute to the advance of education in California and around the world. Thank you, guys.
Now, this concludes the business of the Executive Committee. The committee is adjourned. I now convene the August 29th, 30th, 2024 meeting of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. The Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act for teleconference meetings require that commission members who are attending the meeting via teleconference to disclose of any other individuals 18 years of age or older are present in the room at the remote location, and the general nature of the member's relationship with any such individuals. Are there any disclosures for members attending via Zoom? Commissioner Hartwig?
I have no such disclosures. Thank you.
Commissioner Martinez?
I have no such disclosures. Thanks.
Student Liaison Wicks?
Sorry about that. No disclosures here.
Thank you, commissioners. Commissioners who are participating via Zoom must be visible at all times on camera. Please log off Zoom if you need to leave the meeting and log back in when you are ready to join the meeting. If you experience broadband or internet connectivity problems while participating in the meeting, that would be remedied by joining without video. You must announce the reason for your non-appearance when you turn off your camera. We will now take roll call. Recording Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Lynette Brown.
Here.
Catherine Williams Brown.
Here.
Jose Cardenas.
Present.
Cheryl Carlton.
Here.
Juan Cruz.
Here.
Christopher Davis.
Present.
Michael De La Torre. Anna Marie Francois.
Present.
Nikita Gwynell Shire.
Present.
Johanna Howard.
Present.
Anna Radia. Present. Bonnie Clark. Present. Ira Lit.
Present.
Monica Martinez.
Present.
Rain Aubrey.
Present.
David Simmons.
Present.
Tommy Yuzoff. Here. Kimberly Weiss Smith.
Present. Thank you. Commissioner Cruz, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to remind everyone about the meeting procedures before we get to today's agenda. This meeting is being conducted at the Commission office and via teleconference. Commissioners participating from the Commission building and also via Zoom. The public has the option to attend the general session of the meeting at the Commission office or participate remotely through Zoom or US toll-free phone number. The meeting room technology includes built-in microphones, speakers, cameras, and monitors. Please note the ceiling microphones are always on, as I found out this morning, and will pick up everything that is said at all times. So please be aware that anything that is said in this room will be captured on the archived recordings of the meeting. Therefore, side conversation should be kept to a minimum, if occurring at all, while in this room. Members that are participating by Zoom or are connected to the Zoom meeting, please mute your laptop speakers, microphones, and mute yourselves on the Zoom video. Commissioners attending the meeting via Zoom that would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. As this is a hybrid meeting, we will need to conduct each vote by roll call. We would like to ask the members of the public who attend the meeting via Zoom and would like to make public comment to check Zoom identification. Your Zoom identification is the name used when logging into the meeting. It is important that the Zoom identification is accurate so we can call on you appropriately during public comment. Next, we will cover public comment procedures. The committee chair will announce when the public comment period is open during the presentation of the agenda item and ask for anyone who wishes to comment to notify the meeting moderator. Individuals who attend the meeting at the Commission office will need to submit a request to address the Commission card to the meeting moderator. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak. At that time, the individual will be able to approach the podium and share their comments. Individuals who join the meeting via the Zoom webcast will need to click on the raise hand icon to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling their Zoom ID. At that time, the individual will be prompted to unmute their microphone and will be able to share their comment. The Zoom ID name used by the member of the public to join the Zoom meeting will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Individuals who join the meeting through the US toll-free number will need to press *9 on their phone to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual it is their turn to speak by calling their phone number and will allow them to unmute their telephone. At the time, the individual will be prompted to press *6 and will be able to share their comment. Please note only a partial phone number will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker to speak on a particular agenda item. We ask that you keep your remarks brief and focused on the particular item you're speaking to. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. After the meeting, the archived audio and video will be available via the Commission's website. Next, I'm very sad to announce that Megan Gross has stepped down from the Commission due to a change in employment. She accepted a position as a program specialist for the Supporting Inclusive Practices Grant Project out of El Dorado County Office of Education. Megan was appointed to the commission to serve as a teacher representative in March of 2021. Her experience and knowledge made her a valued colleague on the commission. On behalf of the commission, I want to thank Megan for her service and wish her well in her new position with the El Dorado County Office of Education. Round of applause. Item 3A is the approval of June 2024 minutes. We will now open for public comment. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Commissioners, we will need to make two separate motions to approve the ad hoc committee and regular session minutes. I'd like to remind everyone that only those who served on each committee can make and second the motion to approve the committee minutes. First, do I have a motion from a member of the ad hoc committee to approve the June 2024 ad hoc committee minutes? And the members are Catherine Brown, Christopher Davis, and David Simmons. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Moved by Commissioner Davis. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Catherine Williams Brown.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, do I have a motion to approve the June 2024 commission meeting minutes? Commissioner Cruz, do I have a second? Commissioner Davis, thank you. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Annette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Gerald Carlton.
Aye.
Juan Cruz.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Makita Bueno Shire.
Aye.
Johanna Harwick.
Aye.
Aradia. Abstain. Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Ira Lip.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Abstain?
David Simmons. Fang Yuzoff.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is 3B, approval of the August 2024 agenda. We have a revised item 3C and agenda inserts for item 3C and 6A. Please note that we will complete all regular agenda items today, and Friday will be closed session only. I'd like to start the Educator Preparation Committee no later than 10:15. So commissioners, please keep that in mind as we do our report. We'll now open for public comment. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? Public comment period for this item is now closed. Motion to approve the August 2024 agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Davis, do I have a second? Commissioner Brown, thank you. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Annette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Gerald Carlton.
Aye.
Juan Cruz.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Makita Bueno Shire.
Aye.
Johanna Harwick.
Aye.
Stephen Aradia. Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Ira Lip.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Yuzoff.
Thank you. Agenda item 3C is approval of the August 2024 consent calendar. We will now open for public comment. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
There are no public.
The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any items they would like to consider in closed session? Okay, I'm going to give it another second. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? This is Commissioner Platt, thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Martinez, thank you. Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Annette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Cheryl Cotton.
Aye.
Juan Cruz.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Abstain.
Delfino Shire.
Aye.
Johanna Hardwick.
Aye.
Susan Aradia. Nikla.
Aye.
Ira Lit.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Wrong resolved. Motion carried.
Thank you. Well, good morning again, colleagues, and welcome to another school year. And welcome to what promises to be a very interesting fall as we head into the election season. I don't know about you, but I am feeling a mix of emotions. Encouraged, energized, and yes, hopeful. As our former First Lady Michelle Obama said during the recent Democratic National Convention, hope is making a comeback. I want to highlight 3 topics as we begin another year of our work together. First, with the addition of a former high school teacher to the Democratic ticket, it may be that being a teacher is cool again. Recent press releases from the California Teachers Association and the National Education Association have focused on the fact that educators are fired up and united by the Harris-Walz ticket. The Hechinger Report is a great resource for educators, and a recent publication on the upcoming election is very illuminating. I would encourage you to read about the education platforms of both major parties and come to your own decision, and I will send this link around later today. As stated by the editor of the report, the candidates' views go to the heart of what public education means in our democratic society. They also have implications for nearly every aspect of our lives, including childcare, immigration, school choice, funding, family leave, and college access, to name just a few. I encourage you to read the report. Second, as you read in the most recent CTC news, and kudos to Anita Fitzhugh, the Commission, in conjunction with the State Collaborative for California's Educator Workforce, has produced a number of financial resources for teacher preparation programs and candidates. Recognizing the challenges and the opportunity presented to California's post-secondary and PK-12 system to build a sustainable set of workforce solutions, several of us began meeting in the fall of 2022 to establish a collaborative space for state agency leaders who guide, develop, administer, and support educator workforce programs. Several commission members, including Cheryl Cotton, Anna Marie Francois, Shireen Pavri, Kimberly White-Smith, Director Sandy, and myself have served on this group. I am most excited about the Roadmap to Teaching in California, which is designed to help candidates explore differences between the major teacher preparation pathways and learn more about available financial resources. I thank the CTC staff for their work in support of this important resource, and thank you to West Ed staff for their excellent facilitation of the work. And third, as we begin another year together, I want to remind us of discourse norms that we have discussed previously around this table. You may recall that in January of 2023, we discussed and agreed upon norms for our discussion during closed session, and I will share these around again with you tomorrow. I would also like us to consider norms for our deliberations during the rest of our meeting time together. As we know, our conversations are characterized by thoughtful debate, deliberation, and give and take. This process can sometimes take a long time and may be very different in character than the individual decision-maker model that we may be used to. I would offer the following community norms, which I have adapted from our West Ed colleagues. I have found them helpful in other work groups as we have grappled with complex topics, and I hope you do as well. First, be present. Be on time and participate. Try and refrain from checking email. I'm saying that to myself. And doing other tasks as much as possible. Second, give and receive feedback respectfully. Critical analysis is part of the continuous improvement process. Third, speak your truth and seek understanding of truths that differ from yours. Embrace different perspectives. Fourth, notice power dynamics. Power shows up in many different ways. Be aware of how you might be unconsciously using your privilege and power. And finally, step up and step back Be mindful of taking too much or too little space. Thank you. Executive Director Sandy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. It is great to see you. And the first thing I want to say is Happy New Year. All right, the school year has begun for many of us. A few stragglers, the UC quarter system being one of them, are still waiting a few weeks, but this is always a very exciting time. And when you say that hope is making a comeback, I don't know, I feel hopeful every time we begin a new school year. It's just a strange, you can't have lived as long as I have with the rhythm of schools and not feel hope at the beginning of the year. And particularly accented by RJ this morning as our most recent student liaison. Every time I see a new student liaison and watch and listen to your participation over the year, I am so filled with hope about the people who are coming into teaching, who are running into this space because of their passion and the mission that calls them. And what a privilege it is to be part of that pathway. We don't always make it easy, but we work on that. But it really is such an important part of the dialogue at this table. And thank you, RJ, and congratulations. We will keep in touch with you, no question about it, because I don't know where the road ends for you. My friend and colleague, you are headed in a very strong direction, and I'm excited to watch that progress. So thank you so much for being with us. And also Megan Gross, what an incredible educator. How lucky we were to have Megan part of this group as a special educator. We've tapped her at the commission for many times over many years as a special educator with a really important and deep perspective about inclusion and about adaptive practice to meet the needs of all of the students that we serve. We're going to miss her at this table. And because she's no longer a classroom teacher serving in a classroom, she had to give up the seat here. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop calling on her. Megan, if you're listening, just be ready. El Dorado's right up the street, and we really look forward to continued engagement with you. Third, I wanted to recognize one of our colleagues here in the CTC yesterday. Over the weekend. Let's see, today's Thursday, so I think over the weekend he completed his doctoral studies and earned his Doctor of Business Administration with a concentration in strategic leadership from California Southern University. And that is Amarjot Byring, who is a humble, soft-spoken, but extraordinary leader in this building. And we are so proud of him for this accomplishment. And I did let him know that we were doing this. It's really curious that you didn't come down, but that's okay. I was reminding him that when early on in my tenure here as executive, I completed my doctorate at Berkeley, and I was sitting next to Chair Darling Hammond, the commission meeting after I had walked and it was all over, and I was barely able to hold myself together, and she asked me what the title of my dissertation was, and I could not. I was like, what? I had to look it up. I'm sitting here looking it up so she can announce it. So Amarjot, maybe you were wise not to come in the room, but congratulations nonetheless. Really, really very excited that he is with us and for the amazing human that he is and the work that he does for us. So finally, I'd like to recognize that we have a new person who's joined our team. And I'm just trying to make my announcement big enough to see it. My computer keeps going down. There we go. Nope, it's not there. Okay, well, I'm going to miss a few words, but Adam Ibrahim, would you stand just briefly? Everybody? This is Adam Ibrahim, and he's not a stranger in this room, but he may be a stranger in this role for all of you. Adam joined our team in August 1st of this year, and he will be working to support our commission's, the work group that is on your agenda to consider and possibly appoint today, the work group to review the design and implementation of teaching performance assessments. We've brought him in as part of a contract with the Glenn Price Group to help us staff and get this work up and running. We have, as you know, and you'll learn more about later today, a very aggressive timeline for getting this work done. And we are so grateful to have Adam on team now to help us get this organized. And as we are wont to do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Adam began his career in education as an international baccalaureate, English language arts and history social sciences teacher in the Fresno Unified Schools. He went on to support districts across the Central Valley as an assessment and literacy consultant for Fresno County Superintendent of Schools before joining the Californians Dedicated to Education Foundation. While at CDEF, Adam served as the co-director of the California Labor Management Initiative, helping labor and management teams from local education agencies across the state find collaborative solutions to shared priorities and challenges. Adam then applied his experience closer to home as the Director of Local Control and Accountability Plan and Continuous Improvement for San Juan Unified School District. More recently, Adam served as a staff consultant for the instruction and professional development for the California Teachers Association, where he provided statewide technical assistance to teachers and staff on credential-related matters and led the CTA National Board Certification System of Support and the CTA NEA Micro-Credentialing Program. Adam holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science from University of California, Berkeley, a Master of Arts in International Affairs from Washington University in St. Louis, and a Master of Education in U.S. Education and Global Context in a global context from National University. Welcome aboard, Adam. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mary. Do any commissioners have items to report? Yes. Oh, no. I thought it was Commissioner Brown. Raised her hand. No. Okay. Any commissioners? Well, that commissioner.
First, welcome everyone to the new year. It's an exciting new year. And I wanted to start with just saying again, RJ, it's great to have you. I'm glad we still are in contact. I love your AAA, but you also gave us EEE. Excellence and Equity in Education. And I just think that's stellar. And I'd like to say that the community college system began the year with increased enrollments and continues to strengthen the statewide teacher apprenticeship initiative, which I think really tries to work on that EEE. Just a couple of things. The community college system is continuing to explore the impacts of AI in higher ed, as many of our partners are doing. And I think that that's the piece, that plus the common course numbering, it really focuses on being student-centered across our system, but also our intersegmental collaboration. And I think that's really important in all of among our institutions of higher education. And I think the commission is smart to continue to support it because that kind of work will not only deepen what we do statewide, but also the initiatives, particularly in the PK to 3 building of that credential calls for intersegmental collaboration. So I'm really glad to be part of that collaboration. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Davis?
First and foremost, I want to thank my friend RJ Wicks for being with us today, not in person, but I understand why. And your work here has been great. Your friendship even greater, and I wish you the best in New York. And I just need an invite. I've never been to New York before, so just and I brought you a gift, but you're not here to receive it, so I'm sorry. I might have to. Also, I want to say thank you to Adam Ibrahim because I'm about to make his cheeks a little red because as we are furthering the work with National Board in partnership with CTA at Stanford, I was able to give a great presentation this summer at CTA Summer Institute. And thank you to Adam for helping us with our grant writing to secure the funding for our BIPOC grant. and the work that he's done to get that whole thing set up, because everything's still working the same. PowerPoint presentations, everything is just fluid, and it's just a seamless transition from person to person as we make these presentations. We have 46 bright-eyed new candidates who are excited about getting started in the national board process. National board also introduced a very exciting program called the California Black Educator Initiative. Their goal is with the CBEI to get 900 Black educators national board certified the next 2 years. They received a grant from the Balmer Group. And if you know the Balmer Group, the LA Clippers should ring true in your brain there. Their kickoff for Southern California is September 7th. And their Northern California kickoff is on September 21st. And if anyone needs any information about that to pass on to colleagues, I can email that to you, and I can actually give it to Ms. Brown over there so she can send it out to all the commissioners. But I do have these shoulder tap cards that if anybody needs a QR code and is interested in that, because we do know that in national board, amongst national board certified teachers, especially with African-American educators, we are sorely underrepresented in that number. And while national board doesn't reveal a lot of its data about demographic data, that is, we do know that even in our program at Stanford, which is the largest provider in the United States outside of LAUSD that Michael Delatorre works with, he's not here today, so that he can just look at me and brag about that, Black educators are sorely underrepresented. So this is a big push on behalf of National Board to get more educators of color certified. And so what the program aims to do is pay for 100% of all costs associated with National Board that the state of California doesn't cover, or programs like the CTA BIPOC grant doesn't cover for candidates. So it's going to be a very, very exciting kickoff again in Marina Del Rey and Cal Berkeley in September. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll give you some information. And one last thing, I have started at the same school as a teacher on special assignment this time, but in a different role as an EL TOSA. And I have done some things that I never thought I'd do as a teacher. And so it's been a very exciting journey for the first 6 days of school. So I'll have more to say about that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Cotton.
Good morning, everyone. CDE, just want to say hello, and on behalf of our state superintendent, I do also want to say congratulations to Commissioner RJ Wicks. I'm so proud of you. I was checking my phone to make sure I had your contact information because we do need to stay in touch. Just excited about your trajectory and what's next for you, and what's next and the next and the next. So see so much potential and growth, and just so many amazing things coming your way. I also want to say thank you to Commissioner Megan Gross. We've worked together very briefly, but she's a force. She's a powerhouse and just brilliant. So I love that the fact that in all of these different committees and commissions and circles that we're able to connect with so many brilliant educators and people who are really connected to the field and bring a perspective that maybe beyond where we are, but it's exciting work. And then also, congratulations, Adam. I feel like our paths crossed and then cross again. I'm really excited for the work you're doing. It just makes such good sense. It's wonderful. I do want to lift up in our state superintendent's welcome back letter that came out. I want to read a little bit of a blurb from that letter. And this is for all educators out there. We want to hear about your experiences on the ground. with our special initiatives. Whether you've been working with literacy coaches and reading specialists to ensure that all students learn to read by 3rd grade, develop your local community school strategy, implement anti-bias education to make sure there's no place for hate in our schools, or working to deliver the promise of any of our other Transforming Schools initiatives. We're looking for input and bright spots. And so if you can, please share by reaching out to initiatives at cde.ca.gov. Want to hear just what's the great work. This is not a legislative report. It's not any of those things. It's I am seeing impact of the work that we are doing, of the funding that we've received, the historic funding that we've received over the last few years. And I'm seeing it make a difference, and we want those stories. So please go ahead and share that. I also want to say thank you to Commissioner Chair Shire for lifting up the work of the Teacher Workforce Collaborative. It is exciting work. And as we continue to address and acknowledge teacher shortages across our state, and also the need for diversifying the teacher workforce, this is, I think, a great step in that direction and a great collaborative work across both pre-K-12, higher ed, and all of the partners in between. So it's really excited about this work. I do want to lift up our mathematics instructional materials adoption. We are looking for reviewers. That application period will close September 24th, 2024. So if you're interested as an educator, it could be a classroom teacher, it's those folks who are teaching math, want to be engaged, please take a moment and consider applying to be a reviewer. The review process will happen next summer. But the application period will close September 24th. So if you know of anyone who may be a great person in that role, please send that message to them. Take a look at our website for the mathematics instructional materials adoption. Just sliding through a couple of notes, things that my work touches that I want to make sure that the field is aware of. California Assessment Conference is coming up in October, October 15th through the 17th. The theme this year is around empowering educators and leveraging assessment and data, assessment data and tools for classroom success. So where those two things meet is what we're talking about. We generally have a couple thousand educators in those sessions. And so we would love to lift that work up and make sure that folks are registering. Registration is now open for that. I also want to I'm thinking deadlines right now. Big deadlines that are coming up. Lots of great work that's happening with CDE. I also want to acknowledge Nancy Brynelson is in the room. She's one of our co-literacy directors, along with Bonnie Garcia, that is doing amazing work in connection with the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And so that partnership and that deep collaboration, I think, is essential for making this all make sense and making this work for our educators in the field. So again, thank you, Nancy, for being here today. Thank you to CDE team that's here to support me today. And with that, I close. Thank you very much, everyone. Theme for the year, hope and joy. Hope.
Indeed. Thank you, Commissioner Cotton. And thank you for the reminder of the importance of stories to talk about our work. So I look forward to the stories and the bright spots that you will be sharing. Commissioner Palry.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. I did an update from the CSU system. Before I do, RJ, I want to add my warm congratulations to you and thanks for your contributions now and in the future, and good luck with your program and everything that comes ahead. So our CSU campuses are off and running, all but one, which is still on a quarter system, and we're looking forward to a wonderful school year. I'd like to give a brief update on our PK3 credentials. So you probably may be aware, two of our California State University systems were the first ones to get approved to offer the PK3 credential. And San Jose State has started their credential program. They've got a cohort of students in their classes. The program started this fall, so we're really excited. And Fresno State will be launching their program coming in the spring. We have several other campuses who are very close. I'm looking to Cheryl. They will be seeking committee on accreditation approval fairly soon. And then we have a total of 17 of our campuses who are at different stages in the development of this credential program, which is also extremely exciting. And the important thing is that we are developing these credential programs in partnership with our intersegmental partners, our community college, and our school district partners. So we're all looking forward to these programs being launched soon. Speaking of San Jose State, kudos to San Jose State. They recently received the Krista McAuliffe Teacher Education Award from the ASCU, which is our American Association of State Colleges and Universities, for excellence and innovation in diversifying the teaching profession. We've got several programs that are providing multiple on-ramps, especially for our candidates of color, and it's a fitting recognition for the campus, so we're very proud of their work. And then I'd like to share an update from the UC-CSU Collaborative for Neuroscience, Diversity and Learning that Anne-Marie and myself serve on the steering committee for. The purpose of this collaborative is to develop resources for neurodiverse learners and their families. And we'll be providing a lot of professional learning to both pre-service as well as in-service educators. An event that is coming up soon is our Senior Fellows Program, which is a wonderful opportunity to bring together faculty from the UC and the CSU, along with state legislators, to help with shaping, informing, guiding policy development. And so our first event is going to be on September 16th and 17th at UCLA. The co-chair for this Senior Fellows Program is our Lieutenant Governor, Eleni Kounalakis. And we have an impressive lineup of state legislators from the Assembly and the Senate who will be meeting for 2 whole days at UCLA in close partnership with our faculty. And so we're excited about that event that's coming up. There will be a webinar, there will be a summit coming up in November, so we will keep you posted about those upcoming events as well.
I just want to add very quickly that speaking of Megan Rose, she will be one of the panelists at the summit next month. Awesome. And I can start my commission report. First, I want to say how wonderful it is to see you all in person again in this beautiful space. All y'all back there too. Renee and I were talking this morning about it's one thing to join via Zoom, but when you get to be in community and the energy, the physical presence, it just kind of changes the dynamics of everything. So I'm really happy to be here. Every time around this year, I talk about how excited I am about the new school year, because like Commissioner Sandy, I get a little geeky about back to school, new shoes, new clothes. But I live right across the street from an elementary school and a middle school, and the best part of my day is looking out the window and watching the kids and their family entering into school, and the teachers welcoming them with open arms. And it reminds me about another theme that ran in the Democratic National Convention, and that is never underestimate the teacher. And I want to remind us that that's the work that we need to prepare public school teachers for the inside of the classroom, inside of the school days. Before I give my report, I also want to give my shout out to RJ. I knew that you were an impressive young man. First, when you brought your parents here to introduce them one by one to all of us, and the pride on their faces, we now know why. You are a formidable young man. And today, when you announce Teachers College for real, I have to say, I had this like wonderful, proud auntie moment. I was like, that's my RJ right there. But in all seriousness, it has been a joy to work alongside of you. I can't wait to see where the next steps of your journey are going to take you. And you remember, this is your Ohana too. This is your family. We will always be here for you. And we will always be reaching out to you to give back to the village. So congratulations, and we are going to miss you at this table. Wow. Okay, so now the real report. UC expects me to give a report and I will do so. So UCLA hasn't started yet. We're still on the quarter system, but there's been a lot of changes in the UC system across the last 6 months, a lot of leadership changes. The biggest one is that the UC president, Michael Drake, recently announced that he'll step down from his role as president of the UC at the end of 2024-25 after 5 years of leading the UC system. He's been an incredible leader across those 5 years. He joined us at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, trying to focus on immediately keeping the university safe. And then throughout, and then, you know, all of the things that we contributed to the system throughout his tenure, and he's leaving as he navigates and helps the system navigate the student activism, campus protests that have been happening across all of these campuses in response to a lot of the socio-political activities that's happening locally, but also globally. You know, as you know, the UC campuses continue the sites of free speech, of this free speech movement reflected in that student activism and protest over the past year. And as our campuses open back up, we anticipate a resurgence of that activism. And we stand ready to come to some agreements with our students and our staff to ensure safety and to ensure that folks have the right to free speech, and encouraging and creating spaces for civic dialogue so that we can be a model for what goes on in the world. Some other changes we have, we see the chancellor of UC Santa Barbara too will be stepping down soon. And we have 2 new chancellors at UCLA and UC Berkeley. Julio Frank will be joining UCLA and Richard Lyons will be joining UC Berkeley. I'm happy to announce that UC Irvine School of Education is joining with Santa Ana Unified School District to launch their very first University Assisted School partnership at James Monroe Elementary School. And it's really distinctive for allowing a more robust, holistic, and community-driven approach between a school of education and an entire school. And not just a partnership that provides, the university provides resources, but a reciprocal relationship that what that partnership is shared between the district, that particular school, and the university. So they're going to become a really significant part of our learning about what does it mean for universities and schools to partner in authentic ways to advance equity and also student achievement and teacher and leader sense of equity. Earlier this summer, the UC Riverside School of Education Teacher Education Program graduated their first ever UCR Palm Desert cohort of graduates. This is really significant for us. You know, we are a very small school, a very small system. And we don't do a whole lot in rural communities because we aren't necessarily located in rural neighborhoods, with the exception of UCR, UC Merced. And so given the critical shortage in the Coachella Valley, the UCR School of Education worked with UC leaders at UCR Palm Desert to add a cohort of students who are earning their master's degree and teaching credential. The other thing that UC is very excited about is its engagement in several of the initiatives across the statewide system of support. So I have 2, I want to share 2 because Shireen was so gracious to talk about the UC-CSU collaborative work. First, in terms of the 21st Century California School Leadership Academy Statewide Center, which is a reminder of the partnership between UC Berkeley, UCLA, and the California Subject Matter Project. There are 2 recently released briefs that you all might be interested in. One is titled Approaching Research Practice Partnerships, Considerations for Equity-Oriented School Leaders. And the other is Equity-Driven Leadership in Rural Education. And the authors of both of those represent UC research and well as UC graduate students within 21 CSLA. 21 CSLA is also hosting a webinar titled Moving Towards Justice with Socio-Emotional Learning, which is free and open to the public on September 18th. And it's going to be hosted by Jabari Mahiri, who's a professor at UC Berkeley. And there are panelists from San Diego County Office of Education, Sacramento City Unified School District, UC Berkeley School of Social Welfare, and Fresno Unified School District are going to be represented. Lastly, the other exciting activity in 21 CSLA is they continue to offer the UTK Leadership Certificate for leaders in the Universal Transitional Kindergarten space. It's a 4-unit online synchronous program offered by UC Berkeley. All of those resources you can find on the 21 CSLA website. And lastly, I'd like to share the latest that's happening with this Community Schools State Technical Assistance Center, which is led by a partnership between the Alameda County Office of Education, Californians for Justice, the National Education Association, and UCLA. The spring 2024 edition of the UCLA Center for Community Schooling online journal features Anaheim Union High School District. Their stories, speaking of stories, Commissioner Shire, support the collective learning of the struggles and successes with implementing community schooling from the classroom to the Capitol, and offers a lens in understanding how various sociopolitical dynamics, student population, and distinctive approaches to public education shapes implementation of community schools, which we know is a significant movement across California at this time. And that work is done through learning exchanges, role-like peer learning networks, and storytelling initiatives, and which aims to lift up lessons and spark reflection and growth across California, community schools and beyond. And to access that issue, you can go to the community schools website. And I don't have the URL, but type in UCLA Center for Community Schooling, and there we will be. And then lastly, on a personal note, I will say, I want to report that my daughter, a week and a half ago, started her first year teaching. First year classroom. Northeast Valley. And mommy was there the week before school, putting up bulletin boards, cleaning floors, moving tables, building book boxes, and I have never been happier in my life. We got back to school night. She was energetic. She was excited. She was confident. And, I think about her this morning. I think about RJ leaving us, and I'm going to rephrase Governor Walz's statement, and I will say, never underestimate the power of a public school teacher. Mm-hmm. Both you and she, RJ, are about to change the world. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, now you're gonna make me cry.
Don't cry.
Okay,
I'll start
Yeah.
crying.
I'm going to be real quick. RJ, super proud of you. I too am a graduate of Teachers College. I graduated in 1995. And I don't know if that's Whittier Hall that you're in, but I stayed in Whittier Hall, and I actually, in order to pay for my living expenses, I sat as a monitor and signed people into the building. There is, but congratulations. I'm proud of you. If there's anything I can do to be supportive, just reach out and let me know. I too am going to miss Commissioner Gross. She was an advocate for a lot of the work that we are starting to build at the University of San Diego. And so with that, because she recently came and visited us when we had a panel on neurodiversity and learning. So I just wanted to share that Dr. Nikki Elliott, who started the Center for Neurodiversity, Learning and Wellness at the University of Laverne in 2017, has joined the University of San Diego to begin a Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity, which not only acknowledges the neuroscience and neurobiology that we all need to know, learn, and understand in order to really create learning synergies for our students today, but also recognizes the embodied trauma that racism, sexism, misogyny, all the things that we're experiencing actually impacts learning. And so one of the first things that the center is doing is called SEEN, Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity. Get it? So one of the first things she's doing is working with schools and school districts to help them build ecosystems of supports. She has also built a curriculum for community colleges and those who administrators and counselors who work in community colleges with neurodivergent learners who've experienced trauma, learners who come from economic oppressed backgrounds. Pasadena Community College is one of our partners in that work, and we're hoping to spread that work across the state. I also wanted to give a shout out to Jessup University. On October 19th, they are having their 2024 School Safety Conference. This event is designed to bring together educators, administrators, safety professionals, emergency personnel, and mental health experts to share insights, strategies, and best practices for ensuring the safety and well-being of our school and school communities. My last update is that the work of the Community Engagement Initiative, that is a statewide initiative, and is a partner with University of San Diego, the County Office of Ed of San Diego's County Office of Ed, and the state has begun their Community Engaged Initiative this last week and this upcoming week. We're engaging with over 85 school districts across the state. That includes not only teachers and administrators and superintendents, but in addition, parents and actually children as well will be coming and learning how to interact and engage in real and authentic ways to uplift our communities. So thank you.
Commissioners, before we go to liaisons. Yes, please. Commissioner Cardenas.
My notes, don't forget. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for all being here. I know this is an exciting year, like Director Sandy had said, as far as Happy New Year. I've been able to be at sites at the beginning of the year. We started August 1st. And so you can imagine coming back in July, just hitting the ground running with students. And I was able to be at a few schools, and one of my high schools, as soon as I walked up, the band was playing, they were giving out snacks. It was such an inviting atmosphere and cheerful. And I saw all of these teachers smiling. I saw my former students who were teachers in the hallways. You know, they were just, it was so surreal. And it was great to see that energy. And the students were smiling and they were excited, you know, and I was also able to be at elementary sites. And so that's the benefit of me being able to travel around to different schools as a counselor, the excitement with the littles and how they were so happy and ready to be there. And I'm looking for that energy from our educators to continue that, right? And we all know that that could be very trying for a lot of our educators, because you have to continue that. And so there is a theme that I really started this year within our counseling staff. And a lot of you may have heard about the marigold effect through educators, about finding that companion. And I reminded folks that as we go through this process, we need to find those support systems, so people that continue to be our positive light. And so I'm reminding people to find that marigold, find that companion that's going to help you uplift you through this journey, because our kids are looking to us. They're looking for that energy. And so I just want to share a little bit about the field. This summer, I got to go to Kansas City for a conference, for the Ask a National Conference for school counselors. And you would think it was just school counselors, but we had superintendents there, we had teachers, we had district staff, we had so many different interns, people in credentialing programs. And so at this conference, there was a huge theme around AI, of course, because that's been a hot topic, but just that social emotional well-being of our students, the whole student, so the continued theme there. And I had the opportunity to go to Topeka, Kansas. And Topeka, Kansas is we're Brown Board of Education. And it was for me a reminder, right, of why we continue to do this work, because there's so many challenges and equity gaps that we need to continue to address. And I had gone with a fellow counselor who was from Minnesota, and he was doing a documentary. And again, we were both inspired to continue. This was not that long ago. This work needs to continue to happen. We need to continue to speak up and do something about it. And so that's one of the messages that I've been bringing back to a lot of our counselors. And with that, we were also able to celebrate one of our own in Stockton. We had a school counselor who was now the California School Counselor of the Year. And she happens to be from Stockton. And it was just very exciting because we had folks from the state. We had our superintendents. Her name is Jordan Blevins, phenomenal counselor, but she knows that she represents more than herself. She knows that she represents every counselor in the state of California. She knows she represents students across the state. And her message is, how do we continue to collaborate? How do we continue to partner so we can continue to help all of our students? And so we were in a lot of celebration mode. A few years back, there were only less than 10 schools that were ASCA national schools. It's called RAMP, Recognized ASCA Model Program. Currently, there are 95 schools in California that have received this national award to provide comprehensive school counseling programs with a multi-tiered systems of support for all of our students. And so this has continued to generate a lot of momentum here in California, where we want to ensure that we provide support for all of our students, not some of our students, and really looking at data, but also really looking at the whole child and how we impact and how we can make an impact for the long term. And so and then the last thing I'm going to say is just thank you to RJ. Can't say enough about our student liaisons, just the inspiration that they bring, how they just continue to, I think, make us take a pause on the decisions that we're making here each and every day, and how they're going to be the next leaders. They're changing the next generation. I look forward to the journey. I look forward to the stories. And I know that his story will continue to inspire others to come into education. So just thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardenas. All right, I'm going to move to liaison reports, and I think that's a really good place for RJ to come back in.
Alrighty. Hi everybody. Thank you again for all the kind words. This is so inspiring and just makes me feel my heart is just really full. It is very sad to be that this is my last meeting. I wish I could stay on and, continue to work and give insight and give voice, but I am so excited for the new student liaison. And I see this as an opportunity to continue to stay engaged with the commission, with them, with hopefully a new portal being uploaded, or just with this manual, being able to pass whatever knowledge I have and can offer to the new liaison. So I'm so excited for that. Also super cool to hear that we have some alum from TC. The alumni connections out here have been insane. Even just walking around with like a little bag that says TC or Teachers College, people have stopped me. So I'm really, really excited for this new chapter, and I can't wait to keep you guys updated with all that's going on. Again, like I said, I know I have like NSO or new student orientation things coming up soon, so I might dip out throughout this process. But again, I words can't describe how appreciative I am for all of your kind words and your support and mentorship. You have all been an inspiration to me. And I'm just excited to keep you guys updated with all that comes next. So thank you once again.
All right. Other reports? I now recess the general session and move to the Professional Practices Committee. I will chair the committee since Commissioner Hartwig is attending via Zoom. We now convene the Professional Practices Committee. The committee has one item today. Item 4A is the Division of Professional Practices Workload Report. Rachel Brazafi will present this item. Ms. Brazafi, will you please begin?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Updates on the Commission's Division of Professional Practices Workload are presented to the Commission to provide insight into the scope and level of work in educator discipline. This report covers the period of May through July 2024. The Commission's dashboards report on 6 key measures in line graph form, showing both current year numbers as well as prior year numbers for comparison purposes. The total cases are the number of open cases within DPP, including cases in the intake unit, before the Committee of Credentials, pending before the Commission, and pending an administrative hearing. At the end of July, DPP's caseload was 3,536. Cases opened are new cases opened during the month from all sources, including criminal, arrest notices, district reports, affidavits, and educators who self-report misconduct. In July, DPP opened 563 cases. The initial review and formal review charts reflect the number of cases reviewed by the committee at its normal 3-day meeting in July. This 2-step review process is required by statute. There were 89 initial review cases prepared in July, and DPP continues to expect this number to fluctuate as cases move through the committee process. Cases closed is the number of matters closed by commission action, committee action, or closed by staff where the commission has given formal delegation of authority. For single alcohol offenses that do not involve schools, minors, or publicity. In July, 604 cases were closed. AG cases refers to cases in which an educator requested administrative hearing to challenge the recommendation for discipline made by the committee. An administrative hearing is an evidentiary proceeding where an administrative law judge hears and rules on the evidence. Commission is represented in these hearings by the Office of the Attorney General. The number of cases where the AG is representing the commission is shown in the last graph. The number of cases currently administrative hearing is 160. DPP is committed to work that is critical to public service and the commission's mission. DPP continues to maintain a steady case production while at the same time ensuring case quality preparation for the committee. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Christofi. We'll now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to provide a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or clicking on the raise hand icon if participated through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? As a reminder, this is an information item and no action is needed. Hartwig?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Grenishire, for chairing this committee while I couldn't be there. I'm sorry to miss this meeting, and I'm recovering from a knee surgery, so I look forward to seeing you all in October, but I'm sorry I can't be there in person during this meeting. Thank you, Ms. Gritzofi. I want to express appreciation, as I think I do each time, for the dedication and diligence you'd show in putting together this report. This is our one opportunity during the public sessions of our meeting to illuminate this incredibly important work on the disciplinary caseload that the commission does behind closed doors for confidentiality reasons. And so I really appreciate your making sure that we are able to review in public the work that is going on in the DPP. I note, as we have seen over this last year, that there is a very large increase in the caseload. In July 2023, we opened 393 cases, and in July 2024, we opened 563 cases, which is an increase of 43%. That's quite significant. I do also note that in July 2023, we closed 400 cases, and in July 2024, we closed 604 cases, 51% increase. So it seems like we are increasing our pace along with the increase of cases that are opened, but I do want to check in with you about your anticipation of our staffing being able to continue to meet the pace of moving through the cases that we expect from the commission.
Thank you. So the staffing that we're doing, trying to keep up with the pace of the cases, is we're doing a lot of cross-training. So when you see months where there's large increases, it's because we're doing cross-training, which gives us more hands-on workload. And by cross-training, that allows more staff to understand what we do, and we train in very sequential processing, and especially beginning in intake. So our intake unit is our entry point when a case starts. And as we do that and we train not only new staff, for example, we have a person retiring. Her last day is today. She served 35 years for the state. I'd like to congratulate her while we're congratulating folks. Ms. Feinberg, today, after 35 years with the state, 12 or 14 years with the Division of Professional Practices alone. So when we have somebody that retires and we're able to backfill positions, then we train, and training takes some significant time. So as we balance the training pieces with cross-training of new staff and different staff to new processes, you'll see peaks and balances in how we're addressing workload so that we can address peaks in workload. If we get a large volume of applications or misconduct reports, we can do that via cross-training. So you may see peaks when we're doing cross-training such as this.
Thank you for that explanation, and that seems like a thoughtful approach to be able to have more people trained to do more different types of tasks and redeploy your staffing resources as needed. Thank you for that. And please I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the name of the employee whose last day is today.
Diana Feinberg, 35 years with the state.
Okay, please convey our sincere thanks to Ms. Feinberg, and congratulations on her
I will
return.
do so.
That's the end of my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartwig. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Grisafi. This concludes the business before the Professional Practices Committee. The committee is now adjourned. This is the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Cardenas, will you please convene the committee?
I would like to call the August 2024 meeting of the Educator Preparation Committee to order. We have 6 agenda items. All these items are scheduled for today. We were initially going to start with item 5A, but we're going to move to item 5C. For the musical chairs, we apologize for that. Next, we will have item 5C, the request for approval of field tests for the Fresno assessment of student teachers literacy performance assessment. This item is being presented by David DeGeer, is joined by Dr. Juliet Wallach, Associate Professor of Literacy Education and Director of Educator Preparation Programs and Accreditation, and Susie Brandel, Lecturer and FAST Coordinator from Fresno State University. This is an information action item. Mr. DeGeer, will you please begin?
Good morning, Commissioners. First, staff apologizes for the late posting of this item. We had originally anticipated that this item would come to the Commission in October, but when we realized that candidates will start working with the FAST 3.0 before the October meeting, we decided to complete our review and bring the item to you today so that Fresno State can begin their field test without delay. So this agenda item presents a request from California State University, Fresno to field test an updated version of their Fresno Assessment of Student Teachers, or FAST, that assesses candidates on literacy instruction that meets the requirements of Senate Bill 488. The FAST 3.0 is intended to meet these requirements so that it can serve as a replacement for the currently adopted Reading Instruction Competence Assessment, or RICO. By measuring priority elements appropriate for new teachers of the Commission-adopted Literacy Teaching Performance Expectations, Domain 7, Effective Literacy Instruction for All Students. The FAST has been approved for use in California since 2008, A panel of psychometricians reviewed the original version and found that it met the commission's adopted performance assessment design standards. In addition, the Human Resources Research Organization completed a comparability study in 2019 and found that the FAST was sufficiently comparable to the other TPA models approved by the commission, the Cal TPA and the Ed TPA, in its representation of the design standards and its assessment and weighting of the commission-adopted teaching performance expectations. The site visitation project component of FAST has been revised to meet the requirements of SB 488. New literacy assessment tasks and scoring rubrics have been developed to assess both the current TPEs, domains 1 through 6, and for the newly adopted TPE domain 7. The faculty of Fresno State plans to use the FAST 3.0 this fall with approximately 85 multiple subject candidates who completed a literacy methods course aligned with TPE 7 last spring or are currently enrolled in one this fall. A second field test is planned for spring 2025, and a separate item will be brought to the commission for approval before that field test. I now turn it over to my colleagues at Fresno State to describe their process for developing the FAST 3.0, its structure, and how it will measure foundational literacy skills.
Good morning, commissioners. First off, I just want to, I'm Juliet Wallleitner. I'm the Director of Educator Preparation Programs at Fresno State, and I hope to oversee the FAST. I also want to introduce my colleague, Susie Brandel, who handles the administrative tasks for the FAST. I want to thank you all. I want to apologize for not being there in person this morning. I am getting ready to teach in our residency program at the Tulare County Office of Education. So that is where I am. That is also why this agenda item got moved up so that I can be ready for my students. So thank you for that. I also want to just thank you for this opportunity to put forward this pilot assessment. We are very proud of our FAST at Fresno State and very proud to be able to offer this to our candidates. We believe that the FAST does provide a valid way for us to be able to evaluate that our candidates have met the TPEs and are ready to take on the mantle of first-year teacher when they leave our program. But we're also very excited to be able to merge the FAST with a literacy assessment. As literacy faculty, we have long been critical of the RECA and the decontextualized ways it assesses candidates' readiness to develop their students' literacy skills. And we're just really thrilled with this opportunity to develop a much more contextualized way of doing that. So in order, just to briefly describe our process, we did gather literacy faculty. It was you have names, CVs, I believe, in the agenda item. And we came together, we examined the existing site visitation project and what we were asking candidates to do there, but we also really closely looked at TPE 7 and the assessment design standards and what were the revisions that were being required to meet the literacy performance, or to be able to meet those standards for being a literacy performance assessment. We considered the tasks, or we developed tasks that would provide authentic opportunities for our candidates to enact their knowledge. The first step, that we ask them to do is to gather contextual data about their students. We ask them to then go in and do phonics-based assessments with their students to really evaluate all of their students and where they are. They then pull a subset of those students to plan some targeted instruction. One of those students must be an English learner. We are expecting them to draw on their language of the dyslexia guidelines to see if any of their students need targeted support in those areas, as well as the California English Learner ELA, ELD roadmap. Again, targeting that instruction, planning that instruction that's responsive. They then do 3 targeted lessons that focus both on foundational skills and meaning making, continually gathering data as they teach, reflecting on that data, revising instructional plans as we do as teachers. They record those sessions. we ask that they then select subset of those videos to then engage in a critical self-reflection and evaluation of. Susie, anything you want to add about any of that? Okay, like our current iterations of the FAST, this will be scored by our coaches and our faculty. We will engage in professional development with them, ensuring they are very familiar with the expectations. They are very familiar with the elements of TPE 7. We will be going through calibration. Prior to doing the formal assessment or the assessment of the entire group, we will pull just a subset of completed projects and meet with a selection of coaches and literacy faculty and practicing teachers to engage in our own calibration, determining exactly how those projects align with the rubric, and then use those selected projects with the more expansive calibration with our coaches and faculty who will be the assessors. Questions that we can answer?
Thank you very much for that presentation.
I still have some more.
Okay.
So the commission has authority to grant waivers that are requested from post-secondary institutions through Education Code Section 44225M upon its finding that the professional preparation equivalent to that prescribed under the provisions to be waived will be or has been completed by the credential candidate or candidates affected. Commission staff, with the support of literacy experts, conducted a review of how well the FAST 3.0 met the 2023 updates to the Performance Assessment Design Standards and the requirements of SB 488. Please refer to Appendix A for how the FAST 3.0 will assess commission-adopted teaching performance expectations, and Appendix C for the FAST alignment with the Performance Assessment Design Standards. Table 1 on page 8 of this item compares the FAST 3.0 with the current Reading Instruction Competence Video Performance Assessment. The review indicates that the FAST 3.0 can be considered to represent professional preparation equivalent and therefore comparable to the current RECA requirements for a multiple subject teaching credential. Under these conditions, the commission has the authority to provide waivers to candidates that meet the expected performance level on the FAST 3.0 rather than on the current RECA. The commission has previously allowed waiver for the TPA and RECA under similar circumstances for the initial pilot of the EdTPA during the 2012-2013 academic year, the redeveloped CalTPA in 2017, and most recently for a pilot test of the Commission's Literacy Performance Assessment. In summary, successful completion of Fresno State's approved teacher preparation program and the FAST 3.0 is comparable to completion of a program and passage of a fully approved TPA and an assessment of reading instruction competence. Therefore, staff recommends that the commission utilize its authority to grant waivers to Fresno State candidates. Granting of this waiver will allow candidates who successfully complete the FAST 3.0 this fall to meet the current RECA requirement and the TPA requirement for a credential. As far as a proposed performance level for the FAST 3.0, developers of TPA models typically conduct a standard setting study in order to establish the requirements for successful completion of the assessment. Fresno State will be doing so following a second field test in the spring. The purpose of the current field study is to engage participants to collect additional validity evidence about the design of the literacy performance assessment components, specifically the tasks and rubrics, and use these data to refine the FAST 3.0. Fresno State faculty have recommended that the passing standard for the field test of the FAST 3.0 be the same as the currently approved passing standard for the FAST 2.0. A minimum score of 2 on each rubric for both the site visitation project and the teaching sample project. Commission staff recommend that the commission approve this passing standard. Candidates who do not meet the commission expected minimum performance level will be supported in retaking rubrics on which they score a 1. So staff recommends the following. that the commission approve the FAST 3.0 field test as proposed for fall 2024. Approve waiver request from Fresno State to waive the requirement of the assessment of reading instruction competence for their candidates identified in Appendix E who successfully complete the FAST 3.0 and to meet the TPA requirement. And to require field test participants to pass with a minimum of 2 points on each rubric of both the site visitation project and teaching sample project. If the commission approves the FAST 3.0 for field test and the waivers, staff will then work with Fresno State to conduct the initial field test this fall. And we are ready to answer questions.
At this point, we will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, pressing *9. If participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Commissioners and staff, Steve McDougall representing CFP today. The only thing I have to say about this is I don't anticipate having any issues once I have a chance to review the document. But I don't think the document was available until last night, unless it's a new platform. To be fair, I'm a stale Gen Xer. So I just haven't had a chance to look at it just to be comfortable with it, GFT, but I don't anticipate any problems. It's just, I just want to make that point. And this topic in general is being watched by a lot of folks these days. So they want to make sure we get out ahead of meetings in time. So, thank you.
Second. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have questions or comments on this item? And Zoom as well, but I see Anna Marie Francois, Commissioner Francois.
Yes, thank you. I do want to echo the concern about items being sent and not taking action thereafter. And so the question I'm about to ask, I'm supposed to be looking at you, David, I'm not even quite sure it makes sense at this point because I didn't have a lot of time to process it. Before I get to the question, I want to just give a shout out and thank the Fresno State team. The work you all have been doing around performance assessments from the very beginning when we took performance assessments seriously in the state has been really inspirational. And the UC system recently has been having recent conversations about possibly creating its own performance assessment as a result of the work and how you consider localized context within the work. And I'd love to see and talk to you all more about that. But the question I have on this item, it really relates to page 6 of the item. So, okay, I understand the review process dating back to 2028. That the panel of psychometricians reviewed the original FAST, right? They found that it met the design standard. And then it seems like it went through a comparability study. So we know that in 2019, so we know that as is, the FAST meets the design standard. And now we jump to how you embed the literacy, performance, expectations, et cetera, into that assessment. And the next paragraph says, Commission staff with the support of literacy experts conducted a review, et cetera. And under those conditions, the commission has the authority to provide waivers. And that your recommendation is based on that. And then I jump back up to paragraph 1 where it says FAF 3.0 has not completed the commission's review process yet and is still under development. And it's expected to come to the commission June 2025 with full implementation starting July 2025. So I'm just a little bit confused about the process and whether or not before it comes back to the commission table for being approved, will it go through the same level of reliability, validity, and comparability study as the FAST of 2008? You hear the question in that?
Yes. I would say that because the FAST has not fundamentally changed in terms of the design standards, because in 2008, that was really what that was about, was the design standard. So the change in the design standards from then, or from 2016 to now, the 2023 changes in the design standards are really all about SB 488. The content that we really need to look at regarding the FAST is how well is it assessing foundational literacy skills. And Nancy Brynelson from CDE, who has been a longtime partner with us on literacy, is the one that we've relied on most, and she reviewed it. Part of the field test is now seeing if what Fresno State has put together really does assess those foundational skills, if their candidates, based on the tasks that they have to do, understand the task, and then can use the videos that they take to demonstrate what they've learned. Much the same as our Cal TPA literacy performance assessment went through the initial pilot test and now is moving into a field test. So there will be a much deeper look, a review in that standard setting study that Fresno will do next spring before the final instrument comes before you for approval.
What will the commission staff's involvement be in the field study?
In the field test, we will just be supporting them as needed. We will meet with them after they have gone through their scoring of these, listen to what they've learned, what they plan to do differently in the spring. We'll bring you an item based on what they're planning to do differently in the spring. And then we'll work with them on their standard setting study. So we normally sit as part of any standard setting study that's done on exams or performance.
Thank you for that.
You director wanted to.
Did you want to?
Well, I was just gonna say, part of my question is confusion on the item, but it's really selfish because I need to think forward to see if we're gonna do this, what is actually the standard process along the way? Like, is there a roadmap on how this happens and how engaged are we gonna be with our campuses in collaboration with the commission? And I think I don't understand that well.
Sure. And we absolutely happy to really provide as much clarity to that roadmap as possible. It's been since maybe 2008 when FAST was initially approved. I believe it was 2008. I think that's the last time we received and reviewed, unless it was EdTPA, a brand new performance assessment for approval. So we have statutory authority to approve any model out there if it meets our assessment design standards. Assessment design standards have been around for 20 years easily. We've adapted them and modified them a few times since we adopted them. But it's been a long time, more than a decade, since we've looked at a brand new assessment to determine whether it meets all of those requirements for validity and reliability, et cetera, and content coverage of our performance expectations. So
That's one thing. So it's not a common occurrence. And the process involves initially putting together a whole design and trying it out with your candidates and demonstrating that it has content and construct validity, that it is reliable and can be reliably scored. All of that evidence is brought to the commission for review. It's put before a panel of psychometricians to make sure the nuts and bolts of an assessment actually work, to help establish the validity argument for the assessment. All of these things that's a necessary part for an initial review, not unlike initial program review. We go very deep on when an initial institution or an initial program comes before us. But once it's been approved and found to be structurally sound under the assessment design standards, then content adjustments occur. So in our own CalTPA system, we have adjusted the content of that by developing the literacy performance assessment. So the structure of it has remained essentially the same, with updates that you'll learn more about when we get to the next items. But the content review, what's essential there is to make sure that structurally it is still within the bounds of what was approved. If it's a brand new structure, then that requires a deeper level of review. But if it's substantively the same structurally, then it becomes really focused on the content. So in this particular cycle for FAST, they were reviewed for structural soundness and similarity to the, FAST is still FAST in terms of its structure. And our own assessment staff, Mike Taylor, Dave DeGear, others have looked at it for that purpose and found it to meet the structural similarities necessary for that. And they also, our team that's been working on the literacy performance assessment with Nancy Brynelson, one of the state's, literacy, I don't even know, czar, but maybe that's not the right word. She's hiding back there, but she's been advising the LPA, the Literacy Performance Assessment Design, for its adherence to the requirements of SB 488 and for its adherence to our TPEs and standards relative to that. So she's been a content expert outside the agency to come alongside and take a look. Is this sound in terms of its adherence to 488 such that it could be considered for approval by you today for piloting and field testing? The piloting and field testing will yield more data about how it worked, what they found, et cetera. And all of those data will continue to accumulate over the next year and be brought back for a final approval. So much like we did with the LPA last year, we asked if we could pilot it. And we brought the evidence that it was substantively similar to the RICA. As necessary, given that RICA is really not as up to date as it needs to be relative to the ELA, ELD framework and the dyslexia standards and these things. So really adhering to our TPEs and standards, that initial review and approval by you was necessary for it to be piloted this past spring. So FAST now is going through that process of demonstrating that they are substantively similar to what they've been, that they are addressing the TPEs and that they are aligned with SB 488. And we are satisfied based on our review and the content review that we've had that the answers to those questions are yes. And it is unfortunate that we didn't have this before you earlier. It's been a process, an iterative process, and the start of school right now and the enrollment of candidates that I think Dr. Wallleitner is maybe in 8 minutes going to be late for her class, or maybe she can multitask. She may be that good. It's now. So the opportunity is now to allow them to pilot this in the fall and bring updates and to then, continue their field testing of it in the spring before they bring it back. I hope that's helpful. And as the UC considers designing and getting ready to design a new iteration, we'll lay all of this out for you in a very clear how to go about the process. And it is iterative. Sorry for a long lecture on this, but.
I think that's important when we have, I didn't know all that, right?
Right.
And so when the next one comes up, I'll be more informed when I read through this. And to be honest with you, you had said this agenda item earlier, what you just said, I would not have extrapolated from what I read here. So I appreciate the time spent.
I just want to say thank you very much. I think that explanation helps also the public as well, right? Are there any other commissioners that would like to make a comment on this item?
I just wanna give my kudos to the Fresno State. This is an extremely heavy lift and very much appreciate your really giving this such careful consideration and thought and planning and putting the items together and now moving forward with field testing. Thank you.
Commissioner Ed.
I have been watching the FAST, the process of the FAST and how it's been implemented. I was unsuccessful in my institution of higher learning of getting our college to adopt the FAST, but I've always been envious of the work of High Fresno and applaud their courageousness in terms of getting it implemented in that year. I am all about pilot studies. I think there's a lot of value in pilot and, in giving people chances to see what works and doesn't work. And the thing that gives me confidence about this, I think there's an attention to let's watch and see. Let's make sure that what we see, we understand and how it should be revised or how it should be eliminated. And, the fact that the FAST has been able to exist this long time also gives them support for but I am very always excited about this because it's an alternative way. It broadens the process for literacy. So I would be supportive of this agenda. An action. Yeah, I'm in support.
Commissioner, are there any other commissioners? Commissioner Simmons?
Okay. My sister was one of the reviewers for a study that of FAST back a decade ago. And she has always told me, why can't everyone be more like Fresno? So I really do have appreciation for the Fresno program. I also, in speaking with a lot of my CSU colleagues, there's a lot of concern about, what happens after Ruth's last date. So I think that this is actually it's a clever way of addressing that too. So I think, and I wonder if the other TPAs might consider that.
So Cal TPA, you've obviously heard a lot about, so that would leave the Ed TPA. We have been told that, yes, they intend to. So I'm hoping that we're gonna hear a more specific plan from them in the coming month or so, because they would need to field test this spring.
And I also would like to appreciate Juliet, who I believe her name is coming up later on in the agenda.
Are there any other commissioners that would like to speak on this item? Okay, so it's no scene, then I'm checking Zoom. Do I have a motion to approve the field test of the revised Fresno assessment of Student Teachers 3.0? Approve that CSU Fresno may request waivers of the RICA and TPA requirements for field test participants, and approve the passing standard of a minimum of 2 points on each rubric of both the site visitation project and the teaching sample project. Commissioner Lit? Commissioner Heredia? So I have a motion by Commissioner Lit, and a second by Commissioner Heredia. Are there any further discussions? Will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Cheryl Carlton. Aye. Juan Cruz.
Aye.
Christopher Davis. Dr. Shire.
Aye.
Hannah Howard.
Aye.
Luna Aradia. Aye. Lee Park. Aye. Rolette.
Aye.
Nika Martinez.
Aye.
Simmons. Wang Yuzo.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. DeGear. Thank you, Dr. Waltleitner and Ms. Brandel. Hopefully you can make it to your class on time. Appreciate you being
I have an hour. Thank you all.
This time, we'd like to take a 5-minute break with everyone. Is that okay? All right, we'll see. Okay, I think we're ready to get started.
So we'll talk.
I know a lot of people are eagerly awaiting getting to agenda item 5A. But we're going to move on to item 5B for right now. So if everybody can pull up item 5B, please. Welcome back. Our next item is 5B, update on the development of literacy performance assessment and pilot study. This item is being presented by Amy Rising and Heather Kennedy. This is an information item. Ms. Rising, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you and good morning, commissioners. Great to be back with you. This agenda item presents an update on the development of the literacy performance assessment, pilot study results, an analysis, and next steps. We do have a PowerPoint this morning for you because we have quite a bit of data that we want to share with you, both quantitative and qualitative, and we thought it might be helpful to have a PowerPoint. So this commission item, while it was close to 80 pages long, and I appreciate all of you that read it. The overview here on the screen points out that we did try to break it up into 6 components to help lead you through all the findings that we had and all the feedback that we received in our work this past spring with all of the educators that do. So the first part that we're going to begin with you is going to provide a summary of the pilot development, how we got to a final version that we could take out and pilot. We'll move then into the methodology. We'll talk about the pilot study analysis. We'll share quantitative findings with you, qualitative findings, and finally talk about next steps as we prepare to move into the field test of the item. And I am being joined by our colleague, Nancy Brennelson. As Mary pointed out, she is our incredible colleague who has helped us so much as we have engaged in the literacy work. And our relationship with the Department of Education is strong and wonderful, and we're glad you're here. Thank you. So she'll join us throughout this and will be very helpful when you come to questions for us. So thank you. All right, so with that, we're going to move on. I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Heather Kennedy, who's going to take you through this first part, and we will move through the item.
Good morning, commissioners. The literacy design team has been engaged in the development of the literacy performance assessment since March of 2023. Additional information about the literacy design team is available on page 2 of the item. Short summaries of each meeting are provided in Appendix B, and a development timeline for the LPA is available in Appendix C. To develop a timeline for the to develop the pilot version of the LPA, the literacy design team used CalTPA Cycle 2 assessment-driven instruction as the foundational document to begin their work and built from the 4 steps: plan, teach, and assess, reflect, and apply. A comparison of the evidence a candidate submits for Cycle 2 of the CalTPA and the pilot version of the LPA is available in Appendix D. In Step 1 plan of the LPA, candidates review recent literacy assessments for their students with their cooperating teacher, select one focus student, provide contextual information for their group of students, including the focus student, and briefly describe 3 to 5 literacy lessons, including corresponding assessments. In Step 2, teach and assess, candidates conduct and video record their lessons and assessments, select video clips, and provide commentary for each video clip. In Step 3, reflect, candidates engage their group of students in the summative assessment and evaluate their responses using performance criteria, analyze and reflect on student results from the summative assessment based on their established performance criteria, and submit the focus student summative assessment response with the feedback they provided to the focus student. In Step 4, apply, candidates plan a reteaching or an extension activity based on their summative assessment results for 1 or more students, video record the activity, and select one video clip and provide written commentary. There are 8 essential questions that drive the rubrics for the literacy performance assessment. The rubrics are tied to specific TPEs and each have 5 levels, with level 3 being the expected performance level for a beginning teacher candidate. The essential questions are available in Appendix I. In Step 1 plan, there are 2 rubrics. 2.1, in which candidates plan using students' assets, create a progression of learning, and establish learning goals. And 2.2, in which candidates apply findings from recent literacy assessments to plan for foundational reading skills using a direct, systematic, and explicit approach, and plan for additional themes from the ELA-ELD framework to meet the literacy and language needs of their students. In Step 2, teach and assess, there are 4 rubrics. 2.3, which addresses teaching foundational reading skills using a direct, systematic, and explicit approach. 2.4, which addresses instruction in the additional themes from the ELA-ELD framework, and if the candidate has English learners in their group, integrated ELD. 2.5, which addresses formative assessment, and 2.6, which addresses feedback to students. In Step 3, reflect, there is 1 rubric in which candidates analyze and reflect on the summative assessment results for the group and the focus student, and determine the effectiveness of their literacy instruction. Finally, in Step 4, apply, there is 1 rubric, 2.8, which asks candidates to apply the assessment results and to plan and implement a follow-up activity. Additional changes in the structure and scope of Cycle 2 that were made to address design team recommendations, alignment to SB 488, and feedback from the field, and the results of the bias review committee are available on pages 2 and 3 of the item. Amy is now going to review the pilot study methodology.
Thank you, Heather. So as we move into this section, and we are moving fairly quickly through here so that we can make sure we get to conversation at the close of this item. So we're going to start with you and take a look at our candidate participation feedback around the from credential areas, et cetera. And we're going to look at the pathways which the candidates who are involved in the pilot test are moving through, and the factors at which they're attending, and their ethnicity. So we're going to start with our first table here in front of you. And so what this basically does is give you a good sense of how complex really this pilot study was. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versions of our performance assessment that is, and we were doing these simultaneously. So we had candidates join us from all of these types of credential programs. And what you see on the slide here is that we had a total of 85 really multiple subject candidates join us. You can see that we had 58 from our TK to 3 settings where they were doing their clinical practice, because you must be doing your clinical practice and be engaged with students directly through the performance assessment. Because at the time, as excited as we are about welcoming our PK to 3 candidate programs, we didn't have them in the spring approved. And so we didn't want to lose our opportunity, though, to look very closely at what's happening with our youngest learners. And so we split our multiple subject community into 2 groups, our TK to 3 candidates and their settings, and then our 4 to 8. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about how we assess that. But we have 58 TK to 3 teachers. We had 27 4th to 8th grade teachers, all working on their multiple subjects credentials. We then had 66 multiple mild to moderate support needs candidates, 43 extensive support needs candidates. And then in our lower incidence areas of special education, the work there and the pedagogy is so unique and specific to the needs of these students and to the assets that they bring. We wanted in our model to make sure that we really were addressing that. So we have 3 specific and distinct versions. 1 for early childhood special ed, and we had 22 candidates join us there. Deaf and hard of hearing, of which we have 6 approved programs in California, we were able to have 2 candidates join us. And for our visual impairment programs, of which we have 2 approved programs in California, we also had 2 candidates. So it was a total of 219 candidates that joined us in this effort this spring, and we thank each and every one of them. That takes us to pathway. How were these 219 candidates supported in their learning of how to become a quality educator? We had 82 join us from our student teaching program, with an additional 11 in our private school programs. We have district interns and university interns. The residency program was represented, as well as our integrated undergraduate teacher credentialing programs, our ITEP programs. And you can see how we had a truly representative sample, we believe it was purposeful. So with a total of 93 in sort of fifth year traditional programs and then 92 interns. So we could really look at whether we were seeing any differences between these candidates and their ability to engage and perform depending on pathway. And the only group that's not represented, we'll get into that in a minute. So let's go to the next slide. And here what you see on this slide, if you had a chance to engage in the item earlier, what we tried to do is just kind of show you how that range of distribution looked across our different credentials. So in our multiple subjects credential candidate pool, you know, the majority were in our student teaching fifth year programs. When we come over to PK to 3, remember this is multiple subject teaching in pre-K to 3. Again, the majority were from student teaching programs. As we come into our ed specialist credentials, you'll see a shift where we have many more interns, sort of an equal number there in MMSN between intern program pathway and fifth year pathway, and similar in our ESN. When we get to early childhood special ed, you'll see that they're all interns in our pilot, and then for BI and DHH, it's split 2 and 2. Again, just wanted to show you the representation. So now we're looking at sector in this table, and you can see that we had 116 candidates join us from California State University setting, 71 from the private independent colleges that engaged, with 32 from LEA County Office programs. And at this time, UC Systems did not join us in the pilot. And so we had that total of 219. We wanted to be really sure that we were being very careful and inclusive. And so we asked our programs when we did identify them after a full review of their programs to make sure they really were addressing what SB 488 said candidates need to learn before they engage in an assessment. These candidates, we asked those programs to make sure that they were giving us a diverse group of candidates. And so what you see here is that we had 85 white non-Hispanic candidates joining us, with 67 Mexican American Chicano, 31 Latin American, other Hispanic, 15 Black candidates, and so on, reaching our total of 219. So that kind of sets up who was in the pilot from a candidate perspective. And now if we look at our assessors and how we've recruited them, trained them, and how they engaged in scoring, and we go to the next slide, you can see that we were able to have the opportunity to work with 79 educators that came to us in the spring and went through our assessor training and participated in scoring. And what you see in this table is how many assessors we were able to work with across the different credential pathways, and again, how many they were able to score with us. So I do want to just point out that the model we use for scoring in pilot is always consensus scoring, where at least 2 educators look at and score collaboratively every submission. And each of these versions is just different enough that each of the trainings for each of these credential types had to be done separately, and across, was it 8 weeks of time, we engaged with these 79 educators that came to join us. They went through calibration, they went then and engaged in consensus scoring, and were able to score 218 submissions. For assessor qualifications, if you're curious, we are very specific about who can come in and participate in this activity, and you can find those assessor qualifications in Appendix F. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Heather.
So our pilot test included representation from multiple subject and all 5 of our ed specialist credential programs. And we gathered pilot test findings from the performance data from scoring and from surveys and focus groups from candidates, program coordinators, cooperating teachers, and assessors. Overall, the candidates and programs found the literacy performance assessment allowed them to demonstrate their literacy instructional practice in an authentic manner, and they appreciated the flexibility of the choices built into the literacy performance assessment. The following points outline key findings from the pilot study data. That focusing on one student was effective to support that student's needs. The instructions for using the ELA literacy standards and the ELD framework were clear, but simplified explanations would be appreciated. Providing examples and clearer definitions for direct, systematic, and explicit would help candidates better understand these approaches. Candidates were able to identify students' assets, cultures, language, dialects, and home communities. However, candidates were challenged to bring this information into their lesson planning. Candidates should continue to provide ELD standards and goals regardless of the number of English learners in their classes. Candidates and program coordinators appreciated the flexibility in their choices. Candidates appreciated having multiple means of representing their learning. Candidates should be required to provide feedback to students that is explicit and related to the ELA literacy and ELD learning goals. Candidates would benefit from examples of product, process, and performance assessments for students. Using one construct in levels 4 and 5 allowed candidates to demonstrate the full range of performance in the rubrics, and providing mid-range examples would be beneficial. For findings on bilingual submissions, those are available on page 9 in the item. And Amy is now going to review the quantitative findings from the pilot study.
Next slide. So what you see here in front of you again is what we have talked about. We had 219 candidates who engaged. We had 218 assessments that were submitted that were scorable. So we wanted to be very careful in this pilot and make sure that we were supporting candidates as thoroughly as we could from a state agency perspective and from a program perspective. And so we carefully screened everything that came in the door. And if we saw something was not complete, we returned it to the candidate and asked them to complete their work and return it to us. We did unfortunately have one submission that was never completed and therefore we could not score it. So that's how we get to our 218. Of those we were able to score that were complete comprehensive submissions, we were able to see evidence from candidates that let them meet the passing score of 14 points. And so 213 candidates, in fact, were able to demonstrate that level of knowledge and higher, as we'll see in the next chart. And so we had an overall pass rate of 97%. So this next chart shows us pass rates by pathway. And you can see here as we take a look at our different and various ways that candidates can come into our wonderful programs and be prepared to be very quality teachers, that across the board, we're seeing, very high percentage rates, with our lowest group being our district interns. So that tells us that we need to, as we move into our field test, really be there to provide perhaps more support to them as they engage. And we will continue to be talking with our interns about what we can be doing to see perhaps their pass rate increase. But 90% is very commendable. So let's go to the next slide. Here we're looking at our ethnicity data, and you can see across our candidates how they did. So starting with our Black candidates, we had 15 who were able to submit and be scored, of whom 14 passed. We drop down and look at our Mexican American Chicano. We had 67 submitted and 65 of them were able to pass, with 2 not passing. And then we come all the way down to the bottom of our white non-Hispanic, 85 submissions, 83 passed with 2 not passing. So when we look across all of that data, we get a percent pass rate at 14. This is one of a chart that I always really appreciate, that our technical contractor evaluation systems is always able to provide us. And I do want to point out that they were incredibly collaborative and supportive in this pilot test phase. It takes a huge amount of effort, both on their part as our technical contractor and on our staff here at the commission's part, to move through these types of studies. But this outcome of this chart really gives you a sense of how candidates did perform. So if you look at the green arrow, that's 14 points. You needed to get 14 points to pass. And everyone above that, as you can see the bars, are passing. So overall, how are we doing? We can tell you that at 14 points and above, we have that 97% pass rate. If we think about this type of assessment that we have been engaging in over the last 8 years, and we've looked at pass rates there, and we've looked at what the passing point was, it's 19 points. So you can look here and see that candidates really did quite well. Their minimum passing score was at the mean was 21 points and then above. And you're seeing candidates score as high as 37 points out of 40. And then you can also see the handful that scored below that passing point of 14. So this kind of gives you an example of how they're doing across. And you can see at 24 candidates were able to get to that score of 15 and so on to that final score, the highest score of 37. So this table gives you a sense of those mean scores. So across our candidates, you can see where they're falling. Again, with that overall mean score of 21, much higher than the score set at 40. This table gives us just a nice look into how the rubrics are actually performing. So we do quite a bit of work to make sure we understand how our rubrics perform, not only for the assessors using them, but ask lots of questions of our candidates, our program coordinators, our coordinating teachers about whether they're clear and easy to use. But in this graphic, what you're seeing is that we do have some additional work to do, of course, always in the development of this work. Probably writing rubrics is the most complicated part of all of this. But in rubric 1, you can see a high bar of the number of candidates who scored at a level 1, which was an immediate point of discussion in each of these different assessor groups that I talked to you about that we worked with. And we will be looking very carefully at that rubric to understand. It comes back to the point that Heather shared, where our candidates are in fact able to tell us all about the context of their students, their assets, their cultural and linguistic assets in particular. But then when they take that next step of planning instruction for them inside of literacy, particularly looking at foundational reading skills, we don't see that, we did not see that drawn up into the instruction. So there's work to do. There's work to do. And also on our side in the rubric, we're going to be looking very carefully at, is there a way to rephrase this? Is there a way in the assessment guide to be more clear about the intent of wanting instruction to be reflective of sustaining practices that support the assets of culture and language that our children and students bring into our classrooms? So that was a point for us just to really get back in and study this summer as we get ready for the field test coming up, and study that carefully as we go forward. And then you can see across the other one that I would call out for you is that if you take a look at rubric 8 there, it's a very teeny tiny little blue line at the level 5 score. And so we again did a lot of work on thinking through what was going on there. We know there's some clarity. We would like to see that every one of our scores and each one of our rubrics is attainable from 1 to 2 to 3, which is where we really do hope candidates are achieving. 4, which is a bit more comprehensive, perhaps sophisticated, and 5, again, another step up. So you can see though, across each of the rubrics, we are seeing all score points being used, and we do have attention to be paid to rubric 8 to really look at that language at level 5 to make sure it's attainable, as we would expect from a brand new, of course, beginning teacher as they're coming out of teacher prep and getting ready to be in their first professional job as a teacher of record. All right, so that takes us now into our quantitative findings from surveys. We do a lot of survey research as well with our 4 main groups, and I'll turn it to Heather to take you through some.
So our survey categories, our surveys were given to candidates, to cooperating teachers, to program coordinators, and to assessors. And we looked at 3 categories within our surveys. We looked at the opportunity to demonstrate knowledge, skills, and abilities, clarity and ease of use, and the literacy performance assessment, pilot information, and support provided. And we'll start out with opportunity to demonstrate knowledge, skills, and abilities. And one of our key findings related to this was that the LPA allowed candidates to demonstrate their literacy, knowledge, skills, and abilities in an authentic way. And we had really strong agreement from our program coordinators and our cooperating teachers related to this particular question. Additionally, if you're looking for information related to our survey questions, you can see all of that information on pages 15 through 34 of our item. Going into clarity and ease of use of the materials and the assessment, our candidates and our program coordinators found that the instructions for how to identify their student were clear. We had strong agreement there. They also agreed that focusing on one student made it easier for them to identify their students' literacy learning needs. And the cooperating teachers were also in agreement related to that particular question. When we get into looking at English language development, the majority of candidates and coordinators strongly agreed about the clarity of the instructions for ELD, but 21 candidates and 4 program coordinators disagreed related to this particular question. So that is something that we'll be focusing on clarifying in preparation for our field test for the spring of 2020. And related to this question, we had 30 candidates indicate that the directions for how to provide students with feedback from the summative assessment were unclear to them. We only had 1 program coordinator indicate that they found these directions unclear. And when we looked at the open-ended responses from candidates related to this question, they said that they were unsure of where to put the feedback that they provided to the students. And so again, this will be something that we will address in our field test predictions. When looking at the way that the literacy performance assessment guide was organized, and our program coordinators and assessors found it easy to find the information they needed, like having the rubrics embedded with the step instructions, having the glossary and links to resources embedded within the guide, and that those responses came from our program coordinators and our assessors. And our assessors agreed that the assessment guide directions provided in the LPA were clear. Our program coordinators and our assessors also agreed that the literacy performance assessment essential questions were clear. Those are what drive the rubrics and what we reviewed at the beginning of our presentation. And Amy's going to review the pilot information and support.
So we're going to turn now and look at data that we were able to gather in regards to the level of supports that candidates have received. So remember, we have a candidate in a program pathway. They engage in their clinical setting, and in their clinical setting, they have a classroom teacher that is also part of their support team, we're hoping, along with their faculty that are providing support. So it's the triad. And so we were very curious, and we know that as those teacher candidates are in those classrooms, they need that level of support. So we've been doing a lot of work on trying to really understand how to provide those supports, not only to faculty, but to cooperating teachers. And so as we're exploring this through our pilot, here is what we have found. So we asked candidates, did you get support from your instructors programs? And their response was very positive. Again, looking at our dark blue and light blue lines. We did, unfortunately, though, have 7 candidates that did not agree, and 2 who strongly disagreed that they got support from their faculty. And so we need to really be sure, again, as we go into the field test, that we at the commission are supporting our faculty in a way that really helps them turn and support their candidates. And when we talk to cooperating teachers about that, they also, the data that came back was that cooperating teachers did provide support, the vast majority, but again, had a couple that perhaps did not agree with that, as you can see in the data. And again, how do we help our cooperating teachers fully understand these assessments, these support candidates in their classrooms as they think about the students and children they're supporting, and also the faculty? So how do we really work on that? So we go to our next slide and take a look here again. Did cooperating teachers provide sufficient support? And again, you're seeing a little bit of a range of responses there from the candidates, and then the coordinate. However, our program coordinators and faculty who responded to this item for us let us know that they thought the coordinating teachers were doing a great job and strongly agreed or agreed. So there's great, it looks like communication, there is communication going on, there is collaboration going on. It's always something that we can look to support when we do hear directly from candidates that they're not feeling that, and we need to be paying close attention. That takes us to our next slide here, and we're looking at our cooperating teachers. Again, we we haven't been expressing the ends all along. Hopefully you've been catching that on the slides, that we had 30 respond. And this was again asking them, so did you discuss these materials with your beginning team? Like, did you have access to them? And you can see that they all felt that they did, and that they did discuss them with their candidate, which is great. And then did they provide support to select the ELA literacy standards for the lessons and assessments? And again, this is so important as we ask our candidates to go to the ELA, ELD standards and framework that our colleagues at the Department of Education have worked so hard to develop and put out there. Our assessment directly connects into that powerful work, and we talk to them about this is what needs to be done. So the fact that cooperating teachers are accessing those materials and then engaging with beginning teachers to make sure that that work is happening in our classrooms with our children and students is great to see here. Although we had one who strongly disagreed, so we'll have to work harder. Next slide, please. And that brings us to our qualitative findings, and I'm gonna again turn it back to him.
So what we're about to go over relates to the focus group data and the open-ended responses out of our surveys. And again, those went to candidates, program coordinators, cooperating teachers, and our assessors. And when they were asked if they felt that a performance assessment provides a better opportunity to demonstrate their ability to teach reading, writing, listening, and speaking rather than a multiple choice exam other than RECA, an analysis of the survey and focus group responses indicated that candidates appreciated the LPA as an alternative to the RECA. They saw it as a more authentic assessment of their literacy knowledge and that the LPA acknowledged their diverse student populations. While candidates found participating in the pilot challenging, they felt that being able to showcase their skills in a performance assessment rather than an exam kept them from being negatively impacted by test anxiety. And they found it to be a meaningful and enriching experience in how to teach literacy. Candidates appreciated the clear rubrics that communicated the expectations of the assessment. The program coordinators were also asked the same question, and program coordinators expressed that rubric-based feedback that candidates and programs receive allow both the candidate and the program to improve. They also shared that having candidates review the recent literacy assessments for students in their classes and applying that understanding of the results is a more real-world application of literacy instruction. The cooperating teachers were appreciative of the practical experience of the literacy performance assessment as it aligned with what teachers do in a daily classroom. They shared that the literacy performance assessment was helpful, practical, and beneficial to candidates. The candidates and coordinators were asked about their rubric use and support, and candidates expressed that they used the rubrics to ensure that they addressed all constructs and they used them to self-assess their work. They also indicated that while they found self-assessment helpful, it could sometimes lead to them second-guessing their submission. Program coordinators use the rubrics to assist with coaching and sentence framing and to create self-assessment tools and have candidates map their evidence to the constructs in the rubrics. And we do have additional qualitative data from the focus groups and surveys in Appendix M in the item. And Amy's going to talk about the literacy design team findings and our next steps.
Yes, so while we did very carefully survey and engage in focus group discussions with our candidates, with our program coordinators and faculty, with our cooperating teachers, and with our assessors, in addition to that, we were able to bring all of that data to our design team, of which Nancy sits on and has joined every meeting that we've held, and all those meetings are summarized for you. I think it's we were able to bring all this data forward, our qualitative and quantitative data, to this group of 24 educators who joined us in this past year and will continue to join us in the year coming to provide their input and feedback from their perspective as teachers on the ground and educators who are supporting the development of new teachers, and share all this with them. And out of that meeting and those conversations, we were able to gain additional findings that we want to share with you now. So basically what we did was broke it down by the 4 steps. Remember our 4 steps of planning instruction, asset-based instruction, teaching and assessing, reflecting on your practice, and applying what you've done. So around the planning step, the feedback that we received pretty much lined up across the findings from both our surveys and focus groups around needing really to be very clear about the terms of what does direct, systematic, and explicit mean. And that we need to make sure that as candidates are using those terms, that we're all clear in the field of education on what that means. Different people have different understandings of that. So for within this assessment, we have a glossary that's many pages long, but we are working on making sure that we're all in alignment and really tying our definitions to the Department of Education's definitions so that across the field, we can have a common language when we talk about the development of literacy with our children and students. So that brings me to my second point, which is a big question that came up was, can we really talk about systematic instruction if we're only looking at 3 to 5 lessons? And again, these 3 to 5 lessons hopefully are chosen in consultation with that cooperating teacher, and they're coming out of a unit or a scope and sequence of instruction. And they are part of a larger systematic approach, hopefully, but we need to look at that carefully and think about that. And so that has been a point of discussion that came up. We really do need to be supporting our student teachers around understanding asset-based instruction. And that what we mean by that is, are you aware of the cultures your children and students are bringing to the classroom, the languages they speak, the dialects, and their home communities? And how can we help engage in, discuss, understand, and bring that into our instruction in a sustainable way? We need to also look at the way we lay out, we're asking for the learning segment from our candidates, and specifically we want to make sure, because we're asking them to use the explicit grade level and developmentally appropriate standards that are laid out in the ELA-ELD framework and the standards provided, that is clear and coming into the work in a way that is helpful and appropriate for our students. And also this issue of every student really is a language learner, no matter what. And so we should be having and taking advantage of all the incredible work the department has done around English language development and using those resources, the roadmap, et cetera, as we help develop our teachers as they get ready to come into our classroom. So the design team was very strong in their ask that we keep this requirement in the assessment and that we make sure we're providing English language development for all of our students. And also a big thing in the pilot, we like to not put page limits on things because we really want to see how long it takes for a candidate to really comprehensively respond. And we had some incredibly responsive and comprehensive responses that were, over 50 pages, for example, in one case. And we said, well, probably page limits is a good idea. Considering a 20 to 25 page limit for the description of 3 to 5 lessons. So we'll see how that holds up in the field test, and maybe we can scoot it down a little. But candidates are very eager to tell us all about the details of their lessons, so that's great. And then a really interesting issue that surfaced inside of our education specialist versions, and that is the important role of having others in the classroom to support you when you're teaching students. So those other instructional support colleagues, and how we ask for that in the assessment. So we had been wanting to see those colleagues show up in the videos, and that's complicated for all kinds of reasons. Many of our interns, in particular, if you think back to that graphic in our education specialists, many of them are interns. They're in a classroom, they're the teacher of record, and sometimes they literally do not have an aide in their room with them. And so we cannot hold candidates responsible for that in an assessment. And so we will ask them to write about what they would do, how they would like to have engagement, but not actually require it right in the video. Yes, so we already spoke to the last point. Let's go to the next. So that's planning. That's all related to planning. And now we come into teaching and assessing. This is where we get to see our videos. What we see in there, first thing, very interesting, is beginning teachers really engaging with their children and students and really praising them as they go through their instruction. But one of the details here is that we're looking for explicit, systematic, and direct instruction. So the feedback coming back to the children and students needs to be direct and explicit. So saying you did a great job, or that was really good job, is something that the design team would really like us to see candidates moving towards actionable feedback that is very explicit and direct to whatever it is that they're teaching in literacy. So putting a little bit more guidance around that and looking at our rubric in particular 2.6 to make sure that that's what we're signaling to the candidate and that's what we're looking for. In 2.5, this whole, again, issue about instructional support personnel. And then finally, another interesting thing that begins to happen, one of the most powerful things about performance assessment is that you can really see teaching in these videos. And sometimes our new candidates are actually providing misinformation to their children and students. And the question was, what do we do about that? What do we do about that? And so we have two ways to handle that. We can write a rubric in such a way that it says if there is consistent and deep misunderstanding going on over and over in the 1 to 4 videos they submit, we would signal that in the rubric. The other thing that we could do is return it to the candidate with what is called a condition code and ask them to revise and resubmit. So we're grappling with that and seeing what we need to do. But there was definitely a concern in some of these early returns. Let's remember, this is early in this work. Candidates are just engaging. Programs are still adjusting to SB 488. But we don't want misinformation going forward in our instruction with our students. In the reflection step, we really, again, coming back to that, in this point, in this step, candidates are looking at their summative assessment and providing feedback to students. So we want to see that explicit feedback. And candidates appealed to us and said, we really could use more models. We could use more examples of how this is supposed to look. What do you really want? And also, one of the most complicated things with brand new teachers in a 1 year or more model is to really help them learn how to develop classroom-based assessment themselves. So giving them more examples of what a product-based classroom-based assessment looks like, or if you're using a process and you're trying to assess that, if you're trying to move into performance assessment, which we would really love to see with our students and really, step away from those 8.5 by 11-inch pieces of paper and those worksheets that we often see. We'd really like to see hands-on learning and deeper engagement, particularly in assessment. Anyway, they would like more examples. So we're working with our colleagues at the Department of Education and we have lots of examples already, but we will get more out to the candidates. And then this feedback issue, again, how is it that you want us, what kind of feedback? When we talk about feedback, which is really, what is it that we're seeing in an assessment with a student or a child and how are we making sure we're providing that actionable feedback so that child and student can move their learning forward. And then in apply, which is where we ask our candidates to step back, look at what happened in their planning, look at what happened in their videos and in their reflection on that, and think about what's next for these students instructionally. Not it's time to go to the playground, but instructionally, what is next in literacy development that we need to be clear there about how to do that and make those connections to that next step of instruction. So lots to do, as always, in this work. And I'll turn it to Heather to talk about some of the changes that are already underway.
So we are working on a lot of revisions for our field test. We're working, as Amy mentioned, about page limits because while we appreciate the very robust responses we're getting, we don't want them to be overthinking what they're providing. We're looking at that requirement for the instructional support personnel and addressing the inaccuracies in lesson delivery. We are looking at providing those examples for candidates to give them some exemplars of what we're looking for the variety of assessment types. We are adding in the option to provide video commentary in step 4. And then we are continuing to edit and identify terms to add to the glossary. For example, clarifying that direct, systematic, and explicit definitions, and then revising that learning segment template, particularly around the way that we are asking for candidates for building on students' assets, particularly cultural and linguistic assets in the learning segment template, and referencing the ELA literacy and ELD standards in addition to their learning goals. And we are continuing to check for the alignment of the evidence that's required in each rubric related to the prompts that we're asking within the tasks. We continue to look at revising and reviewing all of the rubrics to align with any of the changes that we're making. We're working to get candidates some mid-range responses to look for as an example after our field test. We're discussing strategies with evaluation systems for how rubric level score reports can be shared with candidates and programs to clarify what candidates need to address about their literacy instruction. And we're working with all of our groups, our candidates, program coordinators, cooperating teachers, and assessors to determine what supports are going to be helpful for them as we get closer to that 25-26 academic year. We've been working with our bilingual community to talk about ways to support them and how this performance assessment works for bilingual candidates for the 25-26 academic year. We're also working with what can be done to share data with Programs and Results Analyzer. That's the platform where programs can access their results and look at data. And we're also looking at the use of an interactive web-based platform for the candidate assessment guide and for a faculty program guide that we are looking at beta testing in the field test for the LPA.
So that brings us to our last slide, and we took a little longer than I was hoping we would, so my apologies. But what else are we going to be doing? We're going to complete our program recruitment. We do have an item coming up later that will talk explicitly to this. And we will continue to work on finalizing our task rubrics, program guide, support materials. We are looking to bring to you waivers later this fall for candidates that will engage in the field test this spring. And we will continue to think about supports to program faculty, coordinating teachers, cooperating teachers, the teacher candidates themselves, and our assessors. And we will begin the spring field test in January and run it through May, so that we can have that feedback and iterate one more time before we are required to be operational in the fall of 20. So thank you for your attention. Would you like to add anything?
I sure would.
Nancy, since you're with us this morning, is the literacy.
Oh, Mary.
Sorry.
Forevermore. I'd like to say that both Bonnie Garcia and I are liaisons to the design team, and we've really appreciated the opportunity to participate fully. And you can't help but be impressed with the level of detail and the care taken at every step of this process. So have to commend CTC staff and evaluation systems for doing all of that. I want to point out, hey, I've been around for a while. I had one of those big milestone birthdays this year. And as I reflect on, I spent 18 years at the CSU system in the chancellor's office, as well as in the field in schools, at school districts, and at the department. This is my third time at the department. In this iteration of the program standards for literacy, the teaching performance expectations 7 with all of its pieces, the commission products are better aligned with the K-12 standards and the K-12 framework, in this case, English language arts, English language development framework, than ever in the history that I recall. And so that is very heartening, that we're all working on the same body of work, and the work with SB 488 certification, now the literacy performance assessment. It's going to be very important. And I wonder, as I sit and listen to people who had some confusion around terms like direct, systematic, explicit, how to apply the framework, how to apply the standards, I think, gee, I wonder how much deep understanding they have of the framework, of the standards, and what we need to do in preschool through 12th grade to make sure that all teachers really do have that appreciation, particularly cooperating teachers, as well as program coordinators and all the faculty out there. So we need to take a look at that. So Bonnie and I are really pleased to serve as liaisons, and we look forward to our continued work as it moves to the field study. They can tell you we don't hesitate to ask hard questions and to push for things, and we don't always get our way. But it's okay. It's the process is sound. Moreover, what's really critical is that we ensure through all of this that all teachers are fully prepared to teach literacy so that all students learn to read by third grade and beyond. That's our superintendent's initiative and is critically important. And that they learn to read, write, think critically, and communicate, use language powerfully toward their own aims. And so this is a collaboration that needs to continue and can even be deepened as we look at, you know, examples you need, et cetera. So thank you for a couple of moments to comment on this, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. We will now open for public comments. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card, by clicking on the raise hand icon and participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? I see two. Commissioner Palfrey.
Firstly, I want to commend all of you. I mean, this is incredible work that you have been doing. I love the alignment of what our teachers and what's happening in Educator Prep will be aligned. I have a question, and I think I'm just checking my own understanding. My question's around graph 5. Shared with us earlier. I'm looking at it as a diagnostic tool, and I know we have more iterations of field testing as well. But I'm wondering if maybe you can pull the slide back up, or it's on page
7. Table 5.
Graph 5. The rubric scores, the overall distribution of rubric scores. And I'm wondering, I mean, if I'm reading this right, level 1 is, what is the passing score on the rubric? Is it a 3? Is it a 2?
So it's a total of 14 points across all 8 rubrics.
Okay.
You may get them in any way that you can. There's no side condition.
Okay, that's a
one or
as
two.
well. It looks like rubric 1 seems to be the area where most level 1 scores. So I'm wondering, and that is essentially knowing your students, right? And their assets and what they
Yes.
So as information back to our Educator Prep programs, that seems to be an area that we need to beef up in our preparation based on this DPA. Am I reading that right?
Okay. Yeah, so it's not that they are not highly aware and seem to be very clear and understanding and being able to talk about the assets that the children and students bring culturally and linguistically into the classroom and their interests, by the way. It's just when they look at that and then we say, what's your phonics lesson? We're not saying yet. Now, when they move out of foundational reading up into our themes, right, Nancy? Now we should really be seeing that. But that's what we're seeing. A little bit of a hiccup, I guess, a little bit of a downward spiral there around, yes, these are my students, these are the needs they have, these are the assets they bring, and then it's like, oh, but here's my lesson I'm teaching. And we're not seeing that a little bit. I mean, not always. We also had lots of students that were able to demonstrate, candidates that were able to demonstrate it, because you can see the orange, I think it's orange reddish, lots of 2s. 3, the way our rubrics are built in this model is we have our essential question at the top, which explicitly states what we're looking for, how a candidate does X, Y, and Z. And all those are in your appendix. And then level 3 is an exact mirror of what's written in that essential question. So that's really where we're hoping to see candidates be able to demonstrate the full response to the rubric at a 3. A 4, again, is a step up, and a 5 again. And so, anyway,
Rubric
Would you
two
wanna
point,
add?
I was just going to say rubric 2.1 itself is actually in Appendix I, if you'd like to take a look at the specific language that was used to score and resulted in that distribution of scores within the pilot.
Sure, just maybe a quick follow-up question and related note. Want to add my appreciation for the depth of the work that's represented by this report and appreciation for all the folks who've been working on this. This came out a little bit in some of the feedback, but at least the rubrics that we have posted here, and there's a lot of constructs embedded in one rubric, including the one that we're discussing here. So it makes it a little bit difficult, I would imagine, for the evaluation and for some reliability across scores, but also even to make sense of potential outcomes. So the kind of narrative that's been shared around this, the higher rate of scores of 1 on this particular rubric is a reasonable hypothesis, but it's kind of hard to actually discern that, because it's not hard to also say pose a different hypothesis, which is the candidates are knowledgeable and informed around each of these aspects that are identified in the rubric, but they focus their attention on particular ones when they made choices over others. Whereas if we had separated these elements, they might have been more adept at demonstrating all that they know and could do. We had a rubric that really just focused on drawing up and expressing what you know about students, their background, their assets. And then the next item was about what about these things are embedded in your lesson that would have driven them potentially to think about doing that in a more direct way. And then if you had a separate rubric item around ELA, ELD literacy standards, you just might see something a little bit different, because it's a complicated rubric that we built here. And that might, I know there was a few notes of feedback on that, but it's probably something worth considering in the next iteration.
Absolutely.
Yes, I had a couple comments and a couple questions, but let me add my gratitude to Amy and her team for this deep and thoughtful and critical work. You mentioned, I forget which table it was, about sufficient support, that there were some candidates who did not feel that, and I'm curious, was it particular to a credential area or a pathway? I'm sorry I didn't write which page that was on.
That we asked it by pathway. Okay. I won't be able to answer your question, but I do know
curious about that.
Where we saw more interns responding, than others. But again, Commissioner Litt brings up a really point. We're wondering and interpreting data. We're trying to look for triangulation and alignment between different sources, between survey feedback, between focus group feedback, between our own conversations with all the assessors and looking at all that work and having all those discussions. But it's still, 78 candidates of the 219 who chose onto it, like that. So we always have to have that sort of spoonful of sugar when we're looking at any of this data. It's very helpful, but it is not, I wouldn't say, specifically generalizable. So we have to understand it for what we can understand it to mean. And we don't have a way, although in some of our focus groups, we worked really hard to have as many focus groups as we possibly could to include as many candidates. And we even shifted our approach methodology, whatever, because we couldn't get them to come in certain times. So we would ask faculty if we could actually come into their course and talk to candidates during the time they had already set aside to be in class, right? And that was really helpful. But we did ask some questions about that. I don't know if you have anything else, Heather, you would like to add in regard to who those candidates were that felt that they did.
I do know that in the don't know does not apply response. A lot of that had to do with candidates who are the teacher of record. And so the term cooperating teacher might be unfamiliar to them in that they have a mentor that's assigned to them instead of a cooperating teacher because they're the teacher of record. So that could have something to do with response here as well.
Thank you for that. And I think moving forward, I'm particularly interested in perceptions of support across pathways. Another question is, and I think I know the answer to this. Amy, you talked about cultural capital, and I'm assuming that's inclusive of not only English language learners, but also neurodiverse as well. That wasn't explicitly stated. So that was a sort of question. I also want to just lift up and acknowledge the collaboration between the department and the commission. That was said a couple times, but that's really special, and it's going to result in better prepared candidates who can then teach students more effectively. So I think it's worth noting that, and so thank you for that. And then finally, I just want to say on the record, Nancy Brittleson is a gem. I had the great honor to work with her when I was at the California State University Office of the Chancellor, and I am so glad you continue to be engaged in this work, so thank you.
Commissioner Cotton.
Thank you for that. It's similar comments, Chair Shire. I'm thinking about that survey data and how it's. But first I want to give actionable feedback. Sure, now, but I think it was a very thoughtful development and questioning from the literacy design team that is going to impact the design based on this pilot study. So thank you. Excellent work. My question is, and I think it's my question since I was a very small child, what happens to those 5 students? What happens to those students who did not pass? And when we look at those, overall, it's 97%. Demographically, it tells a very different story. I just want to be mindful and ask this group to be mindful. I do want to know what happens if you don't pass forward. There were some, the 14 with the cut score, there were 2 that scored. So what does that mean for them? But also questioning, and I'm sure you won't have the information, are those folks, some of those folks who did not pass, some of the folks who also in the survey data said that they didn't pass. So what does that look like? But again, just lifting up, when we look at overall 97%, that's not too bad, but when you look at a group of 13 students pass, you're looking at 15.
So we had to be very clear with our candidates and our program coordinators at the very outset of this when we started working with those identified 19 programs in November, December in preparation for field tests. And so we even asked candidates to sign an attestation understanding that if they did not meet the 14 points, that they would have to take the current version of the performance assessment cycle 2, and they would have to pass RECA because we did not have a way to re-engage them in. So the other thing that we did is we communicated with our program coordinators very clearly, I hope, and consistently throughout, that if they had a candidate that they thought was starting to get in trouble for or challenged in any way, whether it was due to health or due to their circumstances or context, whatever, that they would counsel them out quickly from this and get them on the path of support towards meeting their requirements. So, we were really hopeful that we could balance the expectation of being able to show and demonstrate that you are capable of teaching literacy out ready, so that you can move through this and be waived from RECA as well as but you can see we had still 5 candidates that were not able to do that. With one candidate actually scoring an 8, which means they got a 1 on every rubric, which means basically we had no evidence. It's, you know.
We also, with what happens next for those candidates, when we concluded scoring for each credential area, they didn't get their official rubric level scores until June, but we did notify candidates whether or not they passed or did not pass immediately upon the conclusion of scoring for each credential area so that they could take advantage of registering for their LTPA cycle and the RECA before the fee waiver expired, so that they could continue to take that exam at no cost and that performance assessment at no cost, because the pilot was also at no cost to the candidate. We wanted to make sure that they had time to take advantage of that as well.
So we strongly encouraged, even more so this year than ever, that the program faculty review these submissions before they were sent for scoring.
It's just the need for support. As you had a provision for students as they agreed to be participants in this protest, there should have been some expectation or commitment by programs to offer that ongoing support beyond. So it's not to continue to support as they go through.
No, it's just, it's a you know, any of, and all of us who have supported brand new teachers, that all kinds of things happen in the course of a year, and they're just not ready yet, and they're just not engaged at the level where they're more support. We all need to be there to provide.
Commissioner Simmons.
That's great work. Of the 5 candidates, how many of them would have been within 1 SEM?
14 is below, well, I'm not sure how to answer this question. If we dropped it if we applied an SEM to 14, we'd probably be somewhere around 11. So maybe the 13 certainly would have passed.
So if this was using the system that we have in other GPA, where that they can assess and support, or out of the 5, most likely would have fallen into that SEM.
Most likely. I mean, I guess when I look at this chart, I can't help but think about the fact that for an 8 rubric instructional cycle, passing standard is set at 19. When we apply the SEM, it comes down to 17. So if we look, again, we're getting in on thin ice, are we not, Commissioner Litt? We can't, it's hard to look at this sample of 218 candidates and make grand generalizations. However, we can look at the candidates that are scoring below 19 and below 17, and we can wonder about what additional supports those candidates need, right, going forward, if you want to do this matchup. But, you know, what this tells me is that we're on the road, we're moving forward. The expectations of SB 488 are being embraced and worked on. Do we have more growth needed? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, if you get a 3, we would love to see every candidate achieve a 3 on every single rubric. These are open book supported assessments. The 3 is written for you in the rubric. That's an answer, right? And so that would be 24 points. If we could get right? So, I mean, we can think about this and cut the numbers in different ways. Will we apply an SEM going forward? Yes. Will we start with a very supportive ramping up passing standard? Most likely we'll come back to you next June We'll share that score data with you, and we will recommend to you what is a very supportive passing standard as we get started in the early years of this, so that everybody together can kind of move towards really teaching foundational reading skills and those additional themes, supporting English language development, bringing in those cultural and linguistic assets, and getting everyone there. But they're, yeah.
Well, and teaching is hard and not
Teaching is very hard. And clinical placements are different, and context is important. All of these things.
Commissioner Clay?
Again, appreciate all the clarifications in the notes. This is kind of a more overarching question. So this report's promising, and you have work to do and will come back to us, but at present, right, this commission hasn't approved any TPA to meet the updated literacy standards, right? So what kind of contingency work are we doing for the prospect that we come to June and we have either 0 or maybe only 1 TPA approved? What kind of work might that entail for us and for all the institutions that have no experience with the one TPA that seems like it's more moving more rapidly than the other? Be doing some work behind the scenes on the various possibilities. And what is that?
So let me start. If I miss anything, team, please jump in. So with this update and with the prior approval to move this one forward, the LPA, and as of the prior action you took on the prior item, now the FAST, are kind of conditionally approved to be piloted and to take the place of RECA for the candidates who take them this year. EdTPA is our third approved model, and they have had, there's been a shift in of who the intellectual leader for the EdTPA is. But it's our understanding, and I think David Digier pointed this out earlier, that that is settling and that they are aware of what's necessary. I've met with the team and with Evaluation Systems, who is the administrative support for EdTPA, earlier this summer to say, really, if EdTPA is going to be a viable option for literacy, they really got to get something in front of the commission, much like FAST did, very soon. I would hope to see something as early as October, but we don't yet have any kind of commitment yet about when that'll be ready. It will need to be an adjustment in the EdTPA to allow for the literacy component that aligns with SB 488 in order for it to be approved. But my very strong hope is that this fall or early winter, we have something in front of you that has met the initial expectation of alignment, and that we ask you to approve its pilot in the spring. So that by next summer, we have all 3 models that are currently available ready to lead forward with literacy as of July 1, and everybody's very cognizant of that date. So I think you raise a really important question, and the lateness of time is beginning to be felt for in this space, but it's not yet too late.
I appreciate the clarification and process timeline. I do think maybe no later than our should be about what kinds of supports we may need to be providing to institutions. Even if we have a plan, we still can't commit that we're going to approve, what we see, depending on how pilots go and so forth. So we should be thinking in advance because we're going to be stuck between policy and practice, potentially, if there's a gap. We don't want to leave institutions and candidates in the lurch.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe Ms. Rising.
I just want to add 2 things. One thing that we began to do once we came through the pilot and saw some of this data coming forward that looked relatively supportive of the approach we were taking and trying out, is that we have just wrapped up 6 webinars for anyone in the field around what an LPA will measure and how it will measure and how it's being measured in the state's model. And with the caveat is very early in the work, things could shift and change. So, you know, we're gonna tell you all that we can. We have provided the actual guide, assessment guide to everyone who joined. So we held those through, we started in July, held them all the way through August. Still August, right? Yes. And we had 40 or 50 attend each one of those sessions. We video recorded it so anyone can have access at any time. So we're very hopeful that that was a step forward for every program regardless of which model, because each model has to measure the same TPEs, right? So should be helpful. The other two models weren't ready yet to do that kind of work, but we got out there and did that. And then also anyone who is in the position, hopefully this won't happen, but if it were to happen and there was not an approval, the model we're building, we call it the literacy performance assessment because it is available to whoever wants to take it. It's not just for those programs that have decided to use the Cal TPA. So in and of itself, it would provide the assessment if you all determine that it has in fact met our assessment design standard. So that's kind of the bucket if the other model.
Commissioner Brown.
You know what I'm gonna ask?
Yes.
Because I'm always early childhood. Yes. First of all, thank you for this substantial work. And I'm looking at the design team members, and there were, most of those design team members were classroom teachers that had experience in teaching reading in the early elementary years. I also know that with this new credential, we're including earlier than the early elementary years. And I know that that's a huge, that's big. And so what I'm wondering is, and I really, again, I appreciated the way you separated multiple subjects into those two different categories, which is very appropriate. I just have to ask the question, and I hope I'm not too late coming to this, is how is early literacy different than elementary literacy, and how is that being integrated into this so that our institutions of higher ed that are building this credential will be well informed and will be supporting those people in that piece of it? That's hasn't been around. I mean, this is the first time in 30 years. So that's the question.
I'll start. Okay. So we have amazingly and very excitingly approved 5 PK-3 programs at this time to operate in the state of California. There are many more in the works and coming along and may be approved by January. So our team has reached out to those 5 programs and encouraged them to participate. They currently have the choice of taking the current multiple subject version until such time that the PK-3 version is appropriate and ready. So and you'll hear more about this when we get to the next item later this afternoon on the math version of PK-3, because they have their own unique TPEs for math, which is fantastic. So we have been able to have 2 of the 5 programs, now 3, late breaking this week, agree to be in the spring LPA pilot. And we are opening the door to every single candidate, whereas other programs have to only have 5 or 10 maybe candidates. So we are trying to be as supportive as possible. And so we have talked individually with each one of those programs at this point and invited them into this process, and we'll provide additional supports to those programs along the way so that those who are ready to participate, and we'll be there with them through the process starting this fall with math, as you'll hear about later today, and then in the spring. And we will continue to grow that because that is such a new credential and a new area, and we're really trying to move forward that developmental approach, play-based learning, performance-based learning, et cetera. We can imagine a trajectory where we will do the best we can with our educators working with us and get it into the field and ready for 25 as promised, and then continue to study and build it, as we go. We have yet to have a year in the performance assessment development work for the commission's model where we didn't iterate every year because we found things as we implemented it, given the difference in context and pathways and sectors, things that needed to be adjusted, tweaked, fixed. So we have
every July sunsetted that year's version and brought out a new version that was slightly improved. And it's just the work of this kind of methodology for measurement. We don't want to shut it down and say, that's it, and that's it for 5 years, you know, no matter what. There's just too much that comes back to us where we can't do that and still call it valid and reliable. So we do the work every year of addressing whatever it is that might be confusing or not clear, or a term that's not described, or a rubric that is affecting candidates in a way that's not appropriate, right? We don't have that sense now that that rubric is functioning in the right way because a word's different. So with our early childhood educators coming into that K-3 field, we'll be working really closely with them, the 5 approved programs, and whoever comes in January. So 3 of them will join us in the literacy, 2 will join us in the math, and whoever comes on and gets approved, we'll be reaching out to them. So in January, if they want to get started that quickly with this work, they can. The other thing is, as you know, Kate, we have the Cal FTPA underway in California, and it was really exciting. Renee and Bronwyn and Debbie were able to, you know, step into that work, support that work, and just did a really amazing 2-day full training of the 6 modules that we developed, again, with us support from Evaluation Systems over the last couple of years. And that work is coming along. So we'll be looking carefully at how that work might come up and inform the PK3 work. So it's a work in progress.
My last triple
yes
is that it's triple T, things take time.
They do, and patience to learn and adjust.
I'll just add that there are 2 new resources that you probably know. The Preschool Transitional Kindergarten Learning Foundations were just published. And in fact, they're in the process of publishing the P3 progressions. So, and both of these documents address not just language and literacy, but mathematics and social emotional learning, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there will be additional resources available from CDE side to support this work with the P3 credential.
We appreciate you bringing those up, because certainly in the community college system, we've been using the learning foundations and the curriculum training to prepare early childhood teachers for decades, and we're really excited and are bringing this the PK, 5 letters now, into the work.
I can't remember.
I can't say it.
Into our work for those core 8 courses as well. So, thank you.
The other thing that I would also bring up is the work that the Department of Education is doing on putting a screening device in place for all children, and we are linking the requirement in our assessment to that as well. And we have included the brand new foundations links as well. So
I'll just say something very brief about the screening. This is a process that was legislated, and it is a screening for risk of reading difficulties, including dyslexia, for all students in California in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. So it only applies to them. Tomorrow, the publishers have their applications due. So they are submitting them to us, and this is a project of the appointed expert panel, the State Board of Education, and CDE. So all of those meetings are public, and so there will be calibration happening at the September meeting, and then deliberations in October, November, and perhaps December, and a formal list will be issued of approved screening instruments for this purpose, and hopefully not just in English, but in other languages as well. So we'll see.
The key difference in this version of this literacy cycle from the past is that the instruction in those 3 to 5 lessons must be based on pre-assessment, which will very clearly be tied to the screeners. So again, trying to work in collaboration
with every educator in California. Will be providing literacy instruction to our departments.
Well, thank you for all that information. Thank you for your thoughtfulness, your thoroughness, and also for the sense of urgency that we kind of feel looming. Because we know that this will impact several of our candidates across California. And we know that these collaborative efforts and partnerships are essential to move this work forward. So thank you to your team. So this is the information action item. No action is needed at this time. Thank you for, let me repeat myself. This is an information item. No action is needed at this time. Thank you, Ms. Rising, Ms. Kennedy, and also Ms. Brittleson for being here today. Really appreciate you all. So let's check in with everyone because we do have item 5A, but I think people are hungry. So if we go ahead and go to lunch, 30 minutes enough? Maybe 45. Okay, so we're gonna do 45. If I see 30, I know it's.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
We'll see you all then in 45 minutes.